Exec session. Exec session.
That they started 40 minutes late.
On the selfie, are we going to try and get all of it behind us in it?
Can't, yeah, I don't know. Can you do that?
I don't know. I got Paul here if I need him to take a picture.
Well, if you want him to just take it, that's fine. Okay.
It'd be funny to do this. I think we should do the selfie and have
Okay.
take a picture of us taking a selfie.
There you go.
I don't want to put it on mine anyway because the picture you have us on the screen is my stomach is sticking way out there. And I want the exact same thing I was in that picture.
Oh.
So skip past that picture real fast.
Okay. All right. Carol's going to read her little blurb since she's a member of ASPA. I jinxed it because I told her. I mean, it's 7 because I figured how long could it go?
Okay. We have to officially, oh yeah. We have to officially,
All right.
recess. Okay. Can I get a motion to recess the executive session of the governing board?
I make a motion that we recess the executive session until after the regular meeting
Second.
concludes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passed. I know that we're running a few minutes late, but we have one board member that had a nature call, so we're going to be starting as soon as she joins us, okay? Be a couple minutes at the most. Okay, we're gonna pull.
Ladies, there's a video at the end of awards related to awards.
At the end. Okay.
Stand up for awards, and then we sit down, there will be a video to watch.
Okay.
here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna move that we adopt the agenda. Oh, wait, there's one more. I need the,
Yes, I think so. It's best if I just abstain from that.
yes.
Okay.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna move that we adopt the agenda, moving 8E, F, and L for separate consideration. You're going to, remove 9C and 9C from, you're gonna move 9C to the next meeting, so,
To the June 13th meeting?
yep, so that the attorneys can, prepare the appropriate contract for our most valued deputy superintendents and finalize, and I should say, kind of like that. And then we're going to remove 9D for separate consideration, so that we can complete the superintendent evaluation process. Okay? That make sense? Oh, wait, now you have my agenda.
I'll give it back to you.
That's okay.
Or here, you want this one?
No, no,
Okay.
I don't have it in here. Okay, are we starting up here or are we starting down there? All right. Oh, that goes well. I call to order the regular meeting of the governing board. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show all board members are present. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda with the exception of moving items 8D, 8E, 8F, and 8L for separate consideration from the consent agenda. Also, to remove item 9C to the June 13th board meeting so that our attorney can finalize contracts for our valued deputy superintendents. And then also to remove item 9D to give the board time to complete the evaluation process for the superintendent.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Could you repeat those again? Sorry. From the consent agenda, I apologize.
Okay, so we are moving items 8D, 8E, 8F, and 8L for separate consideration from the consent agenda.
And one other question.
Moving the 9D and 9C.
Correct, and
to the
9D
next.
will also be on the next
Will be on the
meeting agenda.
next
Thank you for clarification.
Agenda. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, awards and achievements.
Good evening, President Fisher, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Weitenheimer, and special guests. We have many awards tonight and a number of students and staff who are out of town or on vacation, unable to be here. But we're going to recognize them here tonight and also on DVUSD, Facebook, and Twitter. Tonight we begin with our Cooking Up Change winning team who will soon head to Washington, D.C. for the national competition that challenges high school students in cities across the nation to create healthy, appealing school meals. Barry Goldwater Jr., Michael Griffin, and sophomore Jason Ferrari first competed in last year's Cooking Up Change as a team and wanted to do it again this year with the goal of winning the top spot and the prize to represent Barry Goldwater High School and Arizona. The inspiration for their proposed school lunch was the growing popularity of Indian food in America and among their classmates at BGHS. The students explained their menu items to the judges who selected their lunch as the best. Their meal will be served next year in DVUSD high school cafeterias. Their culinary teacher, Chef Ryan Mathis, has guided the students through their classes and the culinary club. Chef, along with food and nutrition coordinator Nona Bennett, helped coordinate the competition. Michael and Jason are excited to visit Washington, D.C. for the first time and cook and serve their food to Congress members, chefs, and education leaders. Congratulations, Barry Goldwater students and Cooking Up Change champions, Michael Griffin and Jason Ferrari. And we invite Chef and Nona to come forward for the photo. Good luck. Tonight we recognize our spring sports champions, and we have 3. In track, Boulder Creek High School senior Daniel Lozano repeated as the 800-meter champion. His road to the championship began with 50 meters to go in last year's state championship when he closed a 10-meter gap to win. He came into this season determined not to settle for anything but another state title. He trained with purpose all year and won every 800-meter race he ran. At this year's state championship, he led from the start, and after hitting the home stretch in a crowd, opened a sizable lead to win his 2nd state title. Congratulations, Boulder Creek senior and state track champion Daniel Lozano. And we invite his family to join him for the photo. Our next state champion also captured a top spot in track and field. Sandra Day O'Connor High School senior Madeline Lundberg is the girls pole vault champion. Madeline had a personal best at regionals, then jumped clean on every height at state before hitting a new personal best of 12 feet 3 inches. Congratulations, Sandra Day O'Connor High School senior and state pole vault champion Madeline Lundberg. Unfortunately, Madeline could not be here tonight. Our final sports champions are the boys volleyball team from Boulder Creek High School. Repeating as state champions wasn't easy, but the team fought hard and had a 15-game win streak heading into the playoffs. At the state tournament, they took each point at a time, not thinking ahead to the next game. Congratulations to the Boulder Creek volleyball team, Arizona State champions. DVUSD is so fortunate to have extraordinary teachers, and tonight we will recognize several of them, beginning with recognition from the ASU Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. ASU selected Stetson Hills School's Dana Russell as the outstanding mentor teacher because she demonstrates commitment to the growth of her student teacher or teacher candidate, practices exceptional supervisory skills by guiding the teacher candidate through the design, delivery, and evaluation of learning activities, and encourages them to engage in continual reflection about the teaching and learning process. Dana Russell is an exceptional role model for teacher candidates as evidenced through her professionalism, commitment to the teaching profession, and effectiveness as a teacher leader. So it shouldn't come as a surprise then that ASU selected Dana's teacher candidate as Stetson Hills School's Ariana Saenz Ochoa as the outstanding teacher candidate. Ariana was chosen because she has had a profound impact on the students during teaching, has shown the ability to write effective lesson plans, and demonstrates organization skills and enthusiasm. She has received rave reviews and positive feedback from the Stetson Hills principal and from Dana Russell. And we are proud to report that she has accepted a 5th grade teaching position at Village Meadows for the coming school year. Congratulations, ASU, outstanding mentor teacher Dana Russell, and outstanding teacher candidate Ariana Saenz Ochoa. And here tonight from ASU is Ruhi Khan. Would you like to join them for the photo? Each year, the Deer Valley Education Foundation holds an extensive nomination, application, and interview process to identify the DVUSD Teachers of the Year. These teachers were honored earlier this month at a special event at Arizona Broadway Theater, and we would like to recognize them here tonight. Here to help Dr. V and the Governing Board congratulate the honorees is Deer Valley Education Foundation Executive Director Marie Brennan. 2016-2017 Teachers of the Year, please come forward when your name is called. From Boulder Creek High School, Kirk Douglas and Caitlin McAndrew. From Deer Valley High School, David Coons and Jessica Rushforth. From Highland Lake Schools, Tracy Brown. From Mountain Ridge High School, Tim Rosenbaum. From New River Elementary, Brandy Martin. From Sierra Verde School, Jody Chesbrough. From Terramar School, from Terramar School, Debbie Hudson and Stephen Lamb. From Village Meadows Elementary, Marcia Carls. From Vista Peak School, Gina Etzel. From West Wing School, Shelley Schubert and Jennifer Schulte. And our rookie first-year Teacher of the Year, Terramar's Megan McGrady. Arizona Middle Level Association Teachers of the Year Annual Award recognizes outstanding educators from AMLA member schools for their commitment to middle level education. Nominations are made by participating AMLA school principals, and we have 3 educators to recognize tonight. First, from Hillcrest Middle School, math teacher Kim Christensen was recognized for the positive relationship she has built campus-wide. She goes above and beyond for all students, teaching them complex ideas while providing numerous opportunities to meet the needs of the middle school learner. Kim is a consummate professional devoted to the success of her students. Congratulations, Arizona Middle Level Association Teacher of the Year, Hillcrest Middle School math teacher Kim Christensen. Also recognized by AMLA are Desert Sky Middle School's Title I Reading Interventionist Deanne Dowland and Title I Math Interventionist Michelle Martelli. This extraordinary intervention team dedicate countless hours to Desert Sky students to make math and reading fun for middle schoolers. Their principal calls them masters in building relationships with struggling students and integrating technology to enable students to improve their skills in math and reading. They collaborate with classroom teachers and go above and beyond to provide resources for their students, so much so that there is continual movement of students in and out of their classes as they achieve grade level mastery. Students leave their classes with confidence in their ability to learn difficult subjects and have fun along the way. Congratulations and sainthood to anyone who works with middle schoolers. Arizona Middle Level Association Teachers of the Year, Desert Sky Middle School's Deanne Dowling and Michelle Martelli. Tonight we recognize a Community of Character and Courage honoree. Our selection panel chose a teacher who showed an extraordinary amount of caring, responsibility, and good citizenship. Deer Valley is honored to welcome Mountain Ridge High School math teacher Jeff Williams into our Community of Character and Courage. Jeff exemplifies many traits of character and courage, not only while advocating for his students, but outside the classroom when no one is watching. Jeff was seen stopping to help an elderly lady walking along a cement road barrier. Not only did he stop to make sure she was safe, but he took her to run errands and spent time visiting with her. While so many of us would pass by a person in distress, hoping they find safety or help soon, Jeff provided that safety, going out of his way to care for a total stranger. And for that decision and action, we are proud to recognize our Community of Character and Courage honoree, Mountain Ridge High School teacher Jeff Williams. And Jeff, I want to point out that along with your certificate, our sponsor, Sky Zone Peoria, has provided to you a check for $100 to use towards any charitable organization of your choice to pay it forward and expand our Community of Character and Courage. Thank you. Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, or PBIS, is a proactive approach to establishing the behavioral supports and social culture needed for all students to achieve social, emotional, and academic success. The PBIS-AZ Achievement Bronze Award recognizes Stetson Hills and West Wing schools for successful implementation and outcomes. Award criteria requires high-fidelity scores on national evaluation assessments and measurable student outcome data. These schools were recognized earlier this month for building school cultures that are more positive, proactive, and supportive for all students so that they can be successful citizens and leaders of our nation. Congratulations, Stetson Hills and West Wing schools, for earning the Bronze PBIS-AZ Achievement Award. Our final award will be presented by Arizona School Public Relations Association member and Director of Organizational Improvement, Cheryl Paul.
Good evening. It is indeed my honor to present this award because I think the Communications and Community Engagement Department would rather I not. So it gives me great privilege to do this. Superintendent Dr. James Weitenheimer and the Communications and Community Engagement Department were recently recognized by the Arizona School Public Relations Association. The CCE department received an award of distinction for the expansion of the Community of Character and Courage recognition and received an award for excellence for the Business and Community Partner Program. The district and schools have worked hard to increase the number of business and community partners over the past 2 years, from 230 to nearly 600. Changes were made to thoughtfully recruit partners and welcome them to productive networking meetings. And this spring, the CCE department created a Business Partner Success Summit to teach school-based staff and parent volunteers how to recruit, leverage, and develop business and community partners. The department is most proud of the award for the superintendent for contributions to public relations. Dr. Weitenheimer received the highest score of any district leader in the state of Arizona with a perfect 100 points for his tireless efforts to communicate with stakeholders. Congratulations to Dr. James R. Weitenheimer and the Communication and Community Engagement Department, Webmaster Gary McSpadden, Secretary Tracy Nelson, and forever Director Monica Allred. Please join us to the stage. And of course, we need a photo.
Thank you for that recognition, even though we didn't really want it. The governing board members may return to your seats. We end tonight with a look at all the reasons why, too early, all the reasons why Dr. V received his award. The Arizona School Public Relations Association put together a wonderful video showing some of Dr. V's contributions to public relations.
The Aspirations Award of Excellence for Superintendent is awarded to superintendents who demonstrate commitment to school public relations and principles through budgetary support of a school public relations office and its professionals, and making public relations a key component of the district's strategic plan. The recipient of this year's award is Superintendent Dr. James R. Weitenheimer from the Deer Valley Unified School District. Dr. Weitenheimer has one of the most robust communications programs of any superintendent in the state. He regularly engages with a variety of stakeholders, including parents, staff, teachers, students, businesses, PTA presidents, and interfaith partners in meaningful and strategic ways. He writes, meets, videos, tweets, and communicates in all ways possible to share the message of the district. Occasionally, his director of communications will write for him, but there isn't a time when he doesn't make the message stronger and more clear. Dr. Weitenheimer hosts 11 Live with Dr. V events at schools and community locations each year for parents, staff, and community members to ask questions and hear his opinions. He also holds an additional 8 Live with Dr. V sessions for the staff of various departments. He has lunch meetings with the 38 PTA presidents 7 times each year and hosts 3 breakfast meetings with interfaith partners from across the district. He attends and speaks at quarterly business and community partner meetings, as well as hosts and facilitates discussion with employees at certified and classified communication councils. He meets with students quarterly through a superintendent advisory council he created. He also records question and answer session videos with questions from the district community. In a time when many group meetings in our society have become contentious, the questions and comments by attendees at Dr. V's events have become increasingly kind and more focused on how we can all work together for the betterment of our students. Congratulations to this year's Aspirations Award of Excellence Superintendent winner.
Very nicely done. So, to any of the award winners who want to run before the before the business meeting starts, now's the good time to do that.
Now's your chance.
I see, said the blind man to the deaf mute in the other room. All right. Governing board reports. Start with Ms. Frank.
Well, I would just like to say that I really, really enjoyed attending not 1 but 5 high school graduations. And it was just great to see our students as they're leaving their life in Deer Valley behind and moving on to a bright future. It was especially gratifying to see some of my former 4th grade students that I hadn't seen in 8 years walk across the stage. Was very meaningful. And you know, they've grown so much, and I was just really taken by how they've gotten older, but I'm quite sure have remained the same. And then also attending Hillcrest Middle School's promotion ceremony. I'd like to give a shout out to the entire staff of Hillcrest. They did a fabulous job. And again, it was very meaningful for me because my last group of 6th graders that I had at my last year as a teacher in Deer Valley were being promoted to high school. They got taller. I think I've gotten shorter. But so those were some really great events that I very much enjoyed attending. And I think that's it for my board report.
Ms. Tweedy.
Wow, I also attended a lot of graduations this week, and really did enjoy it. It was great to see so many students complete their K-12 experience and to move on to college and work and the military for some. So really enjoyed going to all of the graduations, and I also got the chance to attend Deer Valley Middle School graduations. And like Ms. Frank, it was a very exciting experience for me personally because the 5th grade students, the last year I taught in this district at Desert Winds, were promoting into high school. So I recognized many of the students, and I was thrilled to be at, and they did such a great job, so I was thrilled to go to that graduation. I just also wanted to just take a quick minute and apologize to anybody affected tonight. A quick update. There were, I guess, numerous technology issues over the weekend, and the platform that the board receives information in is called Vibe. So it had gone down, and I was unable to access the documents for tonight's meeting, and then there was an attempt to address the situation, but it was unsuccessful as well. So long story short, and I'll just kind of move on, we didn't get the materials for this evening's meeting until Monday. I believe it was Monday when we got them emailed. And so normally I have a lot more time to review and study and ask questions and to get answers and clarifications, and the word book was over 200 pages long, so it just was a lot of information to take in and not very much time. And I know sometimes when you're watching a meeting and maybe you don't know the background and then you see things not running as smoothly or people have questions or they feel like they need to ask for more information. I just wanted to explain and to apologize if anybody's inconvenienced because things don't go as maybe smooth or there's more questions or there's items that people aren't comfortable voting on or need more information. So I just wanted to provide that background to everyone. Thank you.
Ms. O'Brien.
I'd like to congratulate everyone in the district on another year away in the books. So it was awesome. And I'd like to give a shout out to Miss Karen Meyer, who runs our graduations. And you don't know what you don't know. And we attended another district's graduation, my family and I, at the University of Phoenix. And separately and without either of them knowing, both of my children leaned over to me at different parts of the ceremony and said, Mom, our graduation ceremony was way better than this. So thank you to Karen Meyer for teaching those kids to be kings and queens on their special day, and to all the high school administrators, principals, administrators, and staff who make those 2 days run so smoothly. It really, we shine on that day, and it was very awesome. So thank you to everybody, and especially to Karen.
Ms. Ordway.
Well, graduations were covered. Awesome. Promotions were covered. Awesome. Seeing students that you've been with graduate and promote. Check. However, we haven't mentioned going to a campus for the after student checkout day. You've never seen people walk so fast, I don't think. And it's not because they were stuck in the classroom and had no breaks. Anyway, again, shout out to Karen Meyer. I want to make sure everyone remembers to have a safe and restful summer, whether you're a 12-month employee or not. You can still have a safe summer and a fun one. And I'm very excited about our upcoming ASBA Leadership Conference that's next week, where we can learn to be even better board members, to network, and to learn what other districts are doing in this post-Arizona state budget time. Anyway, so happy vacations.
Okay. Well, ditto on the graduations. I don't know if anybody realizes, but graduations are our payday. And I think it's an awesome payday, I really do. My favorite time of the year is to watch those kids and just imagine what they're going to be, where they're going to go, and try and remember God being that young and having such a bright future in front of them. And I want to thank everyone, which basically is anyone who works in this district or has worked in this district during those years, that that's a future you've given those children that they, without you, may not have had. So I do want to thank everyone for that. But I want to do one more thank you. I want to thank this board. I would like to thank my fellow board members. It has been a rough, it's been a rough month. It's been a rough few weeks, and I would like to commend my fellow board members that every time we have had to throw a emergency, oh my God, we need a meeting here, we need a meeting there, executive session. I don't know if people realize that there was one meeting that I think I drove out of the district office at midnight. And this board has not said, Ms. Board President, you're a fool, you haven't done this right. They have bucked up, they've adjusted their schedules and done what was necessary for this district, and I just want to thank them for that. And I want to thank Ms. Redding and Dr. Weitenheimer's office, and of course all the staff that has supported us in those very, very necessary meetings to move us forward. So just thank you. Dr. V.
I don't have a report tonight, but would ask that Dr. Scott Smith come up and move to agenda item 6C.
Good evening, President Fisher, members of the governing board. It's my pleasure tonight to give a report It's going to have two sets of results, one result from the employee satisfaction survey, and then a set of results from the parent and community satisfaction survey. The employee satisfaction survey was administered in the middle of March through about April 10th. It's a long window, but the week of our spring break was in the middle of that window, so we kept it open so people didn't feel like they had to do the survey during spring break. And you can see up there it's shared out electronically and communicated with the help of Monica through the Deer Valley Voice and on the portal and other places. This is the second year in a row now that we have administered the survey internally, and we've also then compiled and analyzed the data internally. We generate a full district report, we generate school and department level reports, and we compile and distribute the open-ended comments. I mentioned the internal generation and analysis because there's a touchy point in all of that, and it's the fact that the work that we've done over the last couple of years to ensure that this survey has the highest amount of anonymity as possible. And the way I do that, I really reduce the number of questions we ask about the person. We only ask them where do they work and whether they're classified, certified, or administrator. So we don't ask them anything else about themselves. And then I also guarantee to them that I will not send out reports or generate sets of comments and share to them if the number that I got from a specific school or a specific type of employee was less than 10. And we have several departments that are like that, and sometimes for a certain employee at some of the schools we also get that. I did give employees a chance that worked at a school but also worked for a department to answer about both the school and the department. I'm very sensitive about those employees specifically because once you know they're at this school and they work for this department, that could be even one person or two people. So I want to make sure that I preserve the anonymity as much as possible. Here are the results from the response rate for this year. We had 2,369 employees, slightly up over last year. And you can see the breakdown between certified, classified administrators, and then the ones that did not answer this question, probably for the reason I just discussed. 13% is up slightly over last year from about 11%. And now I'm going to go through a section, all 5 sections of the employee survey. This first section is on mission, vision, and core values. Real quickly, show you how to read this graph. The blue bars are the changes year over year between 2016 and 2017, and they are measured on the axis on the left-hand side of this chart. The red line is the absolute level of the result for 2017, and that is measured on the right-hand axis of this chart. So here you see all the dimensions for mission, vision, and core values. This, in fact, is a second year in a row that every one of these dimensions, every one of these items have improved on the employee satisfaction survey. I apologize for the smallness of the type, and it can definitely generate pages for you if you need to see larger type. This is the section on district office leadership. I asked them to answer questions about the district office. It said our district office leadership is the STEM, and then you see several items on here. I will probably point out on this slide again that every single dimension is increased. Probably the one that I think is most amazing is the fourth one from the right, where it says our district office leadership exceeds my expectations. I'll remind you that we asked specifically exceeds and not meets or exceeds, because exceeds expectation aligns to what we've stated in the strategic plan. Up 6% again this year, to just above, looks like 60%, 62%. So that's moving. It's still low, but it's moving for us. The next section is on the employee's work environment. In the question, the STEM there, it says, based on my experience working at DVUSD, I can say that. And then there are several items underneath that. You can see, again, for the most part, things are going up. I enjoy my work drop slightly, but it's also at the highest level of all of these items. The big one that clearly pops out to you is I know how the district is doing financially. Dropped 4% and the lowest overall item on the whole section. We've talked about this a little bit in cabinet, and as we start to analyze the comments, trying to figure out what do we do with this knowledge of how we're doing financially, and we'll continue to work on that. The fourth section talks about campus leadership, where we ask questions about the school's leadership and the school environment. Amazing results for our campuses. Every single one of these items going up, and some of them by quite a bit. And finally is the department leadership. Here we have all but one improving year over year, with the clearly defined roles and expectations dropping slightly, 1% year over year. And so these are pretty impressive results also. Overall, just my impression, the results were very, very good in my mind. I did skip one. I'm going to go back because I skipped the board stuff here. You see the two items on the far right of this graph. You see the improvement on those items. Again, this is for the second year in a row that the two questions we've asked about the governing board have improved, and pretty dramatically. Moving forward, I also asked a question which is known as the Net Promoter Score. That question is this question right here. How likely is it you would recommend your school to a friend or colleague? And then you answer that on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 to 6 are detractors, 9s and 10s are promoters, and in the middle of that, 7s and 8s are passives. And to calculate this score, you literally take the percent of promoters minus the percent of detractors, multiply by 100, and you get the Net Promoter Score. Basically, the concept here is you want your employees or your customers, from when you ask your customers, to be extremely satisfied, to be strong promoters of what you're doing here. And they would recommend people coming here. You delete the passes because that's simply, they're okay, but you haven't done anything impressive to really move them. And the detractors, of course, if something has gone wrong, there's been an experience that they would not willing to answer above that level 6. So for employees, we just put a little E on the front of there and call this the Employee Net Promoter Score. How likely is it that you would recommend your school as a place to work? And then for district office employees, how likely is it you would recommend Deer Valley as a place to work? Here you can see the year-over-year results. Just to show you that it's 2017, the most recent, is on the far left. You can see pretty dramatic improvement for both the district office version of this and a little improvement for the school version of Net Promoter Score, which is, as you remember when I presented this last year, for those of you who saw the presentation, we weren't real excited about these Net Promoter Scores, but I tried to caution that it's not necessarily about the absolute level. It's about, okay, what do you do about it then to try to move it? And we've moved both of these Net Promoter Scores up. Some additional things that are out there on the portal page, my portal page, there's an interactive spreadsheet that's posted that you can play with and put different schools in, compare yourself to different schools or to a school type. And there's also a more formal school and department report posted on the portal. We've already been through 3 or 4 rounds of analysis in executive cabinet on some of the comments. There are literally 8 open-ended comment questions on this survey, and we don't look at all of them. Some of them are specific to schools, some of them are specific to departments. Those go to those schools and departments, but cabinet definitely has spent some time analyzing the comments around district office communication, district office effectiveness, and the open-ended comments. As far as we go forward with this, we'll continue to look at those comments and incorporate items in our 2017-18 District Improvement Plan. The Executive Cabinet is doing that right now through a protocol. School administrators, of course, have all of their data for their CITs to put in it and use it for their CIPs, and department leaders, same thing for their DIPs. That was the employee satisfaction survey. For the parent and community satisfaction survey, we had the exact same survey questions this year as we had last year. It was administered, launched around April 12th and actually was open for a little over 3 weeks, just because we lapsed over to the next Monday, so there was another weekend, again shared electronically with the help of our communications department. This is 2,395 completed surveys this year, again up slightly over 2016. 107 of the responses actually had a child that was in charter school. And I show you this pie chart broken out by what percent of them would have graded their school A, B, C, D, and F. And then I'll show you this little trend here, which actually shows from 2014 to 2017, that's gone up every year. And the percent that would grade our schools A has pretty dramatic increase. And then there's slight increases from 15 to 16 and 16 to 17 with the overall A's and B's. Just two sections on this survey. There are a set of school-specific questions. Once the parent or community member, or I guess it would be a parent, says, yes, I have a child going to a school, what school is it? They answer questions about the schools. Here you can see the orange bars being the 2017 result, the most recent result. All but one of these items, two of these items actually improved year over year. And the schools definitely have these results specific to their school to look at and analyze them. Then there was questions about the district office and the board. Different story for these questions. All but one of these went down year over year. So definitely food for thought in these items and in the comments we get back from parents and community. We haven't had a chance to analyze the parent and community comments yet in executive cabinet, but it's coming up. It's on the next couple of agenda. The Net Promoter Score, same concept. I asked parents and communities. This, again, is not as good a story as we've seen before. The red bars are the 2017 bars, and except for K-8 schools, every other school type dropped, and the overall for all schools dropped a little bit year over year. Same type of reports are available on the portal page. There's an interactive results document spreadsheet that you can compare your school again to other schools or the whole district to subsets of the district. And then analysis of the comments and open-ended responses. Schools have their specific comments, and executive cabinet will be looking at the district office set of comments. And again, once again, same thing. School administrators as well as departments have this data to work in their improvement plans, and will continue to investigate alternatives for improved response rates. Although the response rate has gone up over the last 3 years, not by much, and I think we could get a lot better. Happy to answer any questions.
Actually, I have surveys, they serve a purpose. They help us plan for future. They help us move forward. They help us see where there's gaps. They help us see a lot of information. 2 years ago, when the board asked for all raw data, we couldn't get it because it wasn't in-house. A year ago, we couldn't. We received only what the board questions. And this year, again, the request was that we had all raw data, and again, data was removed. So we do not have meaningful raw data when it comes to the employee. And I understand no, I guess I don't understand, because this board has to make decisions based on data and on information. Without having the location of, at least to the minimum, the location of where they're at, the data we have is meaningless. If we have 30 complaints, we have 38 schools. That's really good rate. We have one complaint at most of the schools, and 8 of them are doing perfect. If we have 30 complaints and they're all at one school, we need to know. And so once again, I'm going to request that we get the full raw data, not modified data, not data that's presented in a way, and not data that's changed. The other thing that we did, I do believe we got the complete raw data for the parent survey, from what I could tell. And I spent some time with it, and the one thing that I did notice in that is that this board has, it could be this board, it could be the atmosphere in general, we have failed. We have failed to communicate to our community, and we have failed to communicate the reality of what it is that we do up here. And so I would really hope that we take a look at how we can rectify that situation. We have, there was a large volume of, or large in my opinion, of comments that came out of Boulder Creek about the situation that occurred at Boulder Creek. And I've continued to receive correspondence about that. And the overwhelming thing that we hear is the board made a decision, and they are not aware that the board did not make a decision. I can't speak for other board members. I can only speak for myself. And as for myself, I was told that the board's opinion was not wanted and would not be considered. And the decision was an administrative decision and was what it was. The board had zero say in it, but our community believes that this board made a decision. That's a problem because the board is not, the community is not aware. And we need to do better at making sure our community is aware of what it is we're deciding and what it is we're doing. I continue to see a lot that there's lack of communication. So they're even telling us, you're not communicating to us. You're not communicating appropriately, you're not communicating at all. Now, whether they were targeting the board or administration or whomever isn't relevant. We all need to do a better job at communicating with our community. Perhaps we need to have live with the board. I mean, Dr. V's done an amazing job with some of the correspondence and some of the relationships he's built. So maybe this board needs to start, I don't know, but that's something that I believe that we need to look at. The other thing is a lack of understanding of what the governing board does, what they are, who we are. We're not, I think there's just an overall lack. There continues to be comments on the board getting overpaid. I just want to note that our paycheck is zero. And perhaps some days we are overpaid. And it's funny, we joke about it, but that's really unfair to our public. They need to know, they need to understand that we are here to serve them and we are here to serve their kids. And we're here to listen to them in making these decisions, and that we are diligently receiving data and seeking data to make them. So I really hope that the board considers that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the comments I have based on the notes that I took. But I really would like, at a minimum, I don't care if you put the positions in there, because I don't believe that I don't believe any one board member would even have the authority or power to retaliate against anyone. It takes 3 of us to do anything. We can't blow our noses without 3 of us saying, blow your nose. But I think it is not meaningful data if we don't know at least the location, because if we're getting an overwhelming concern, an employee concern at one location, that is really meaningful to the board. And so once again, I will request that we have a more complete raw data. And that's my spiel. Ms. Frank.
I did have a question on the anonymity of the employee survey. So you mentioned that staff are required to provide the school, correct?
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, yes.
Okay. Are they also required to provide their position, for example, Copper Creek 4th grade, or is it simply the school?
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, it's simply the only 2 identifying things I ask is where they work, what school do they work, and whether they were certified, classified, or administrative.
Okay, so that you wouldn't have, Sierra Verde Art, because that would really narrow it down to just one suspect.
That's
okay.
correct.
And then also just a comment, I think it's, interesting, there was a negative 4% on the statement. I know how the district is doing financially, and I really think it speaks to our need for a more open budget process and NST process. So those are my question and my comment.
I also read the results of the community satisfaction survey, and I did see a lot of the feedback was that they had no idea what the governing board did. So I would like to request that the board, and I know we have enough to do and it might not happen until the budget's approved, have a study session on how we can do a better job communicating with the public. That definitely came through loud and clear, that I wouldn't know what we did either if I wasn't on the board. So I do think that's an area of improvement. I guess my second question, and you probably did cover it. So what were the overall response rates again for the community and the potential, if we would have had 100%, what percentage actually responded to both of these?
President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, the response rate for the employee portion of the survey, you could say was, let's say we have 4,000 employees, so we had 2,300 out of those 4,000, so it'd be almost 60%. I don't know how to get the right denominator for the parents. We can, is there an average of 1.8 parents for every kid that comes to our school, but there's not, because then some parents have 4 kids in the school. So I didn't go out and count the number of parents, but you could, let's say it's 60,000, so we got 2,300 out of 60,000. 60,000 might be low.
Could we get the denominator by how many guardians are listed?
I suppose we could. I did not do that.
Well, I guess the only reason I'm asking this is too, I mean, like Ms. Fisher indicated, we make decisions with survey data, but I mean, you and I both know that surveys with low response rates aren't valid data. I mean, the lower the response rate, the less likely, because what ends up happening are people in certain categories chose to respond. I mean, overly happy people, overly unhappy people. It's not really a random sample at that point. So it's just hard to make interpretations. So I guess in what I'm thinking is if we figured out a way that we could get valid survey, I mean, what would be the minimum number of respondents we would need from each school? Randomly pick those respondents next year and, I mean, harangue them until we get our surveys from them. I don't know what else to say, but I mean, at least then we would have valid perceptual data from a cross-section of because I'm concerned that our response rates, and it's always a problem with survey data, when they're low, you don't really have valid information.
If I may respond, President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, I 100% agree with you, which is one of the primary reasons I don't generate reports when I have very small number of data points. And you might even argue 10 is not high enough. If you want to just go with the theory of large numbers, you'd say I got to have 30, before you're going to really take anything away from a survey like that. And so I think your point is extremely valid when we're talking about a school that might only have 15 or 12, and there are some like that. But I also think 2,300 definitely meets the requirements of the theory of large numbers, but you could still start drawing some inferences from that. And then you want to repeat and make sure you get in the same information the next time. But the very last point on my presentation is I'm still open to any ideas to improve that response rate, and pick out 30 and we'll walk door to door and make sure they do it. I'm just kidding.
Brian, Ms. Ordway, any comment?
I have suggestions, but not now. I mean, Deer Valley University served us well for employees, business partners, parents, and that did give a deeper dive into what the different departments and certainly the governing board and the superintendent do. So I guess maybe we can generate a list of suggestions.
I would concur with Mrs. Tweedy on a study session at an appropriate time to discuss the data, especially about the governing board perception or the perception of us.
Absolutely, we'll get it on. I'll note it for a soon future when we can. Thank you, Scott.
Ms. Fisher, if I ask a quick question. So there are ways in my mind that we could talk about to get the data that you want. I just want to make sure that that we're on record as a board that requiring me to give you all that data, because I think it impacts my credibility, because I've been telling people that's why that I'm trying to keep this as anonymous as possible, and I won't share your data. If it's less than 10, I get those calls every year during the survey. You get those calls during the survey. How can this be anonymous? And if if one of the responses is, well, just make up a school name but still fill out the survey, then you have just as bad a data as anything else, because you don't really know that that's the school that they're attending. So I guess I'm asking that if the board's wish is that I just turn over all that raw data, I would like for it to be said publicly.
Mrs. Oh, sorry.
I would, and that's why I said, even if you just add the location, don't add the position. There's more than just 10 people at the district office. Just lump it all district office. But we need a building. Is this building unhappy? Is this building okay? There may be glitches within the building. You know, pick any of the schools surrounding, Esperanza, Sunrise. You can go as far as you know, New River. I mean, you can, if we can identify that at least that it's a building that's unhappy.
Ms. Fisher, I can definitely do that. There's more than 10 for every building. So.
Right, and that's my point, is we just need the data to be somewhat meaningful, in my opinion. And with it being district-wide, without that one, even that one component, there's not a reasonable way to analyze it to have it be meaningful, in my opinion.
But does it still protect anonymity?
Yes, if you had a building full, it would be.
Ms. Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, yeah, I believe it will. There will be, I don't recall what the smallest number per building was, but it was far more than 10. I want to say it's in the 30s for even the smallest building. So.
Okay, thank you. Because I know there were robust discussions amongst previous board members, as well as from folks who came and made comments about protecting the privacy. So I think if we can get information but still honor that privacy, that is the way we need to do it. We cannot have folks not answering questions because they're.
And I do want to note that it's not that the information is not being provided. It's just not being provided to the board. A campus is being provided their information. So each campus, and that's where that would really be most meaningful.
Okay, so seeing the campus name or building name. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
I would go on record and agree with Ms. Fisher as well. In fact, I sent an email when this went out and said, confirm we were going to have access to the data. So, and I was told we were.
Next is Mr. Miglerino.
President Fisher, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, just to set some expectation here, I actually intended to summarize the more than 60-page demographer's report, and I was only successfully able to summarize it into 30 pages. So just wanted you to settle in. There's a lot of information here. Some of it's going to be very difficult to see in terms of what's being displayed. The intent isn't to get into that level of detail. It's really intended to just give you an idea of why we do the report and some of the highlights of that. So I'd be remiss not to recognize Mr. Rick Brammer and the staff at Applied Economics. They're the ones that commission or actually produce the report. We have done this on an annual basis, and really the intent of the report is to kind of get some insight into what the enrollment trends have been in the district, but also to use this for some long-range planning, especially for capital projects and any other major programmatic changes that we might want to consider as a district. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. Some of the highlights you can see here. I'm not going to read this to you because we have a lot of slides to get through, but we're going to talk about how we develop the report and some of the results of how the report is developed, and then we'll get to some conclusions. Just so that we are all working from the same point of reference, this is a map of our district. All those little boxes there are what we call study grids, so they're planning, and they're in much more detail than we would have for even a school boundary, even at an elementary school level boundary, so that we can look at more granular data. Again, the intention isn't there for you to try and find your home on that map, just to let you know that there's many details to the report that I'm not going to get into this evening. All of these green dots are actually students that we geocode and place on the map. The blue boundary is our district boundary. You'll see some of those green dots are outside of the boundary, and according to the report, over 2,000 students attend our school that are from outside of our attendance boundary. And you'll see where the concentration of students are, just with the intensity of the green dots there as well. The report does note that the undeveloped portions of the district, those are state land areas of our district that cannot be developed currently. This is the trend of what our enrollment has looked like. So going back to 2000, 2001, so we experienced some significant growth all the way up and through the 2007, 2008 year. We then started to see some sharp decline. So the red line that you see on that bar chart is being displayed on the secondary axis, or the right-hand side of the graph, showing the percentage change. And you can see that we did see a slight uptick between 2013-14 and 14-15. That's when we reinstated full-day kindergarten in our district, and then a small decrease, as we've been discussing all year long, for 16-17. This just has kind of where the enrollment is in those study grids that I shared with you before. Just again, the density. So the darker the color, I'm going to go with rust color. Tell me if I speak incorrectly about a color, because I'm not good at this. That's where the higher density of students exist, and it makes sense. It's in mostly master plan communities. So you'll see along the Happy Valley corridor, there's some high density. In the Anthem area, there's some high density, again, master plan communities in our district. This is the enrollment change from 2011, 2012 through 2016, 17. So again, the pink color, if I'm saying that right, I hope, is where we've seen the greatest increase in student enrollment. The blue color is where we've seen decline in student, ranging from a negative 111 students in these areas to a positive 239 students on the high end in the pink areas. Some of the areas that we're noting have some of the highest increase in student enrollment during these years are along the just east of the I-17 corridor between Happy Valley and Carefree Highway, and then also out in the what I would say the western part of our boundary out towards West Wing, Terramar, and Sonora Mountain Ranch. Just a little bit about mobility. This is for those that have seen the demographer's report in the past. We added some new sections specifically. I think it was maybe a backhanded compliment when the demographer actually said, I appreciate somebody who challenges me to include new sections in the report, which was kind of maybe a polite way of saying that that I was difficult in finishing the report. We were a little late. The report finished in April this year. Normally we're done in January, and it's due to some of the mobility data that we wanted to have included. So this is showing the mobility data from 1st through 8th grade for each of the campuses. So on the high end of the spectrum there is Stetson Hills, approaching 80%. On the low end of the spectrum is Esperanza, and they are just approaching 50%. So you can kind of see there's different mobility that exists, and this is maintaining those students through all the grade levels that they would cover in those particular schools. More of the information that we looked at between 8th grade and 9th grade. I looked at mobility data here. So the way you read this report is each of those pie charts represents a 8th grade campus, a campus in which 8th grade is served, and the color coding represents the designated high school in the legend. Anything that's in black would mean that those students did not continue with us for their 9th grade. So 8th graders transitioning to 9th grade. We have this data over a longer period of time that's shown in the actual report itself. But suffice it to say that you can see out in the West Wing area, there's a large section of the pie chart that is not continuous with us in 9th grade to much smaller sections up along in the Anthem area. You can see there's still some that don't continue with us and some that opt for other schools within the district. As represented by their, again, designated color. But this data we think is very valuable, and this is a new addition to the report for this year. We did provide an update to some charter information, so we've included that. About 7,272 total K-12 students in charter schools within our boundaries. And then by grade level, you can see that in the 2014-15 year, again, the year that we reinstated full-day kindergarten, we actually saw a decline in charter school enrollment in those schools in our district. But again, there was a bit of rebound that there has been a renewed increase in enrollment by grade level, with the concentration of those numbers being in the elementary grade levels. So on the residential development side, we take into account all the current development, and that includes any planned development. So we monitor that, the demographer does, through various reports, also working with the municipalities about any changes that are happening, rezoning and whatnot. We look at local market conditions. They subscribe to several resources that provide them with information that would help them predict what the housing market is going to look like. And as I mentioned, any future developments are also included. This just really shows you what projects are looking like over time with a renewed development. Right now we're seeing a lot of infill with projects that were suspended at some point in time due to, I'll say, the housing crisis or recession. Those projects have been resurrected, but new developments we see in the 2 to 3 year time frame where we see some growth potential, not only in the developments but future students as well for our district. This just kind of indicates that same information but graphically on a map, and you'll see that active are again a rust color. So along that far southwestern edge of our boundary near the West Wing area, there's a concentration there, also a concentration that is again just east of I-17, about the middle of our district. So this creates the projections that they're using, and again, we only use this report for long-term planning. So we're not using this for immediate staffing needs, things of that nature. But this has us looking at future growth of just under 10,000 new housing units over the next 10 years. Not so much linear, 1,000 per year, but at least what we might be looking at as a target. And because household size is projected to continue to decline, which it has been during the most recent years, there are fewer student yield generated from, even though we are expecting more houses to be developed. And that's represented in this far right column in what we call the enrollment to population ratio. You can see it was at 0.78%, and going out to the end of this is the 26-27 year, 0.659 is the enrollment to population ratio that's expected. So this gets kind of summarized into a somewhat notorious chart. This represents our student enrollment. The shaded box is a projection for us. The blue bar would represent the school-age population that lives in our district. The black bars represent the student enrollment in our district. And the green bar, which is represented by the secondary axis on the right-hand side, is what we refer to as the capture rate. So how many of those students are we able to maintain within our district in light of all the competition and choices that parents have these days? And we've been able to flatten that line. The trend was a much steeper decline prior to us reinstating full-day kindergarten. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit of time for us to realize any benefit as a result of that, because it has only been in place for just a short number of years at this point in time. So really kind of talk about trends here with the fact that the southern quarter of the district is aging to the point that at the tail end of the report, we're actually starting to see a regeneration of student enrollment potentially in that region. The new developments do tend to bring in younger families, so we get a younger student population there. But birth rates throughout Arizona and throughout the nation have been declining. So again, that's why we see the household ratio shrinking. And we really just haven't seen any indication that there's going to be a large increase in the number of students, again, district-wide. It will be very regional based on new developments that are projected. So just kind of a side-by-side enrollment change, 16-17 to 21-22, and then looking out beyond maybe the immediate path or that immediate time frame. Again, the pinker color is where we would expect to see growth over the next 5 years. And on the high side of that scale, the darker the pink, we're up to 228. The blue would be where we would see decline, and that's a negative 119 would be expected there. Some of the darker blue colors happen to be in the Anthem area over the next 5 years, and then also looking out the future 5-year period as well. So that just kind of gives us an idea of what we're anticipating as a result of this. One of the things that's also new to this year's report is what we look at as the attendance patterns by school. So again, kind of a heat map as to what schools actually are attracting more students and what schools are actually experiencing decline over a period of time. This is showing a 3-year change. Again, blue, and the darker the blue, the higher the rate of decline at a particular campus. Anything pink, the darker the pink would be where we're experiencing growth. I think some of the darkest pink colors there are Sonoran Foothills, are the newest school that we built, and then projecting out Esperanza would also be a potential growth area for our district. That's predicated on the USAA property at 19th Avenue, and essentially at 19th Avenue and Happy Valley Road. So elementary schools on the left-hand side, 3 years of projection, 3 points of time projecting what the pattern would look like. The middle schools and high schools on the right-hand side, where you can see that the largest growth area is the Barry Goldwater High School, projecting upwards of 36% change in enrollment between 2016 through 21. This is almost impossible to read, but I couldn't but I couldn't not include it just because it's a valuable tool to look at. It's a little more readable within the report. The report is posted on our website. I've already received calls. It's posted on the external website, so the public can get to this as well. I've already received a number of calls about this. It is the attendance versus reside category. And the way you read this is every school is listed both on the vertical axis as well as the horizontal axis, and it shows not only the number of students that are attending, and those are the green boxes that are highlighted, but it shows all of the other students in the vertical column that attend a different school. So the way you would read this is Arrowhead has 454 students that reside in their attendance boundary and attend their school. They also have another 70 students that reside in their attendance area that go to the Highland Lakes campus. And that's due to the configuration of the 7th and 8th grade students feeding into Highland Lakes and siblings based on research that we've done. So you can get a total, there are 631 students in all of the Arrowhead attendance area, and their attendance rate is 74%. So 74% of the students that reside within the Arrowhead attendance actually attend the school. The balance attend schools other than their what we would refer to as home school. So district-wide, that's 78% for our elementary schools. And new, we're actually showing where the difference is highlighted in the columns that are out to the far right. So again, using the same color coding, blue being a declining school, and pink or a shade of pink showing where schools have increased their percentage over time. Our 7th and 8th grade, those are just the elementary grades, K through 6, so 7th and 8th grade, so you'll see the K-8 schools are repeated on this page, and the high schools are shown at the bottom to provide some indication. Some things that are worth noting, I thought it was interesting, for example, that Deer Valley High School attracts 235 students from outside of our district boundaries to that high school, the highest number of the 5 high schools. So then we look at the patterns of that attend versus reside. Again, new for this year to kind of see where the trends would be over the last 3 specific years. So this is the 2014-15 year, 15-16, and 16-17, as evidenced on the far right-hand side. And again, where we can see where there might be trends. So growth is happening at schools like Highland Lakes and Legend Springs, as well as Stetson Hills and Sierra Verde. But we are seeing declining attendance reside rates in schools like Canyon Springs, and that has to do with a boundary issue specifically, or Las Brisas, and even New River Elementary School. So not trying to single out one particular campus, but now we have more longitudinal data that we can look at as to what some patterns might look like on the attend versus reside. And again, that's new for this year. That is also indicative of this for both the 7th and 8th grade levels as well as the high schools. Same data just for those specific grade levels. All of that then compiles what we think are the enrollment projections. So the first columns of this shows the actual enrollment, so you can kind of see what the trend looks like. And then we are projecting out the latter 2/3 of those columns are actually projections through 2017-18 through 26-27. The color coding here, as indicated at the bottom, the darker the color orange, I'm going to go with yellow, is showing where they're either at or exceeding their capacity, including schools like Esperanza and Norterra Canyon, as well as Stetson Hills. Any of the blue areas are where the schools are less than 50%, and we're using the school facilities board capacity for this calculation. I'll caution you, we use more than just the school facilities board capacity because we also have a classroom capacity that we like to use because some of the SFB capacity is calculated on total square footage, but just for consistency's sake, we are using SFB capacity for this. This leads us to believe that there are regions of our district that cannot be served with the schools in the immediate location based on this data. This is also true for the middle school and high schools, middle schools proper as well as the high schools proper shown here. But it's much further into the future that we have an issue when it comes to high school in total population. So that may be something that would require us to look at potentially school boundaries, especially because when we've looked at high school boundaries in any previous review of it, we've always had a delayed full implementation of any change to a high school boundary. So a decision would need to be made early for it to have an impact if we were to follow suit with what we have done previously. So just real quickly, here are some of the conclusions. Some slight decline over the next 2 years. That's next year being 17-18 and 18-19, followed by some modest growth thereafter. And some of the reasons why, again, low mobility, lower birth rates, and an overall aging of our population. We do expect to see some single-family development, so we're going to have pockets of areas that are going to need to be addressed in terms of being able to meet the needs of the immediate areas of where this growth is happening. He further goes on to say that some of the renter-occupied housing units may cause some of the growth that we experience, at least as part of their analysis. So I mentioned what the purposes of the report when I started, but just wanted to give you some idea of things that we have that are that we are working on. I mentioned that we only use this for long-term planning, so we do look at how how this addresses some of the changes in our enrollment, or also looks at that market share, or what we refer to as capture rate on that chart. But it really talks about what our future capital needs are. We are continuing our modernization projects, so Desert Sky Middle School is still a very active campus this summer. We are planning to start at Arrowhead Elementary School for the summer of 2018. In order to affect that change, we believe that we would need to ask the board to approve an architect of record at the July 11th meeting. So that is right around the corner. We would issue the RFP to identify the architect, pending any comments from this evening's presentation, and then bring back the formal recommendation at the July meeting for the board to consider. Next on deck would be Bel Air Elementary, Hillcrest Middle School. I mentioned the modernization projects because there were a couple purposes for doing the modernization projects, including making sure that every student had the same learning opportunity at any one of our campuses, whether it was in the southern portion of our district, which is more established, or where we built newer schools in the northern section of our district. But it also was to remain competitive, knowing that we are, again, operating in a very competitive marketplace. And if any changes would need to be made based on the plan that was developed as a part of the 2013 bond election, we certainly would want to make sure the board had an opportunity to make sure that we were continuing on course with the plan that was developed, like as I mentioned earlier. And then finally, a potential new elementary school. It will take 24 months to build a new elementary school, and there is a new elementary school included in the 2013 bond authorization. Doesn't mean that we have to build a new elementary school. It just means that if we were to build one, we would need to plan for it appropriately, meaning that there's a 24-month window to do such a thing. And then I mentioned other adjustments, any programmatic changes to make sure that we're attracting students into our district. Again, looking at that capture rate, we do have some information about the charter schools and the programs that they offer that might be an interest for, you know, parents that are already in our district. And then I mentioned school boundaries as a potential for consideration, especially as I mentioned the high schools, because again, collectively, we would be able to accommodate all of the students in the high school, but just not in the current configuration of high school boundaries that we have. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Ms. Frank.
Well, I'm noticed we've spent quite a bit of money on the modernization projects of I know Esperanza that we toured earlier in the year. I do think it's important to make sure that all students have equal access and the same high quality learning environments, regardless of where their school is located. And it's something I've noted in my current position as I visit schools throughout Maricopa County, that not all schools are the same. So I would applaud this district's efforts to make sure that all students have the same learning environments or equal learning environments regardless of where they reside in the district. I do have some concerns in terms of building a new elementary school, although we do have bond money for that. We then will need to give careful consideration as to how we are going to fund the M&O budget, since there's, as we all know, going through the last budget process and still working on approving a budget, that there's only so far we can stretch those M&O dollars, and we need to be very mindful of that before we build new buildings. They can be built with bond money, but then they have to be staffed and paid for with out of M&O budget. So those are my thoughts. But I do appreciate all of the information and very helpful for planning purposes.
First, I had a question was, in looking at the report, do you think it's getting more accurate at the school level than it's been in years past? I know for the overall district student number, you indicated that it was really accurate, but it was less accurate at the school level.
President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, yes. So the aggregate amount has been very accurate, but the school level data may be less accurate because of the all of the variability that can happen. So a lot of open enrollment, and we try not to control that in any way. So we do get a lot of open enrollment, inter school open enrollment. That's that attend versus reside data that we look at. So that variability has not allowed us to really maintain this at a school level in the same level of accuracy as the total. But in total, it's been fairly accurate. I don't have an exact number to quote this evening, but I can certainly get that information.
And then I guess my next is a comment, but great information, and I could see where it's really useful in the planning, and I'm going to look at it a lot closer when I have more time. But to Ms. Frank's comment on building a new school, I guess I am. I don't understand how we could consider this at this point, and the reason I would say that is we're spending $7 million renovating schools that continue to be under-enrolled. And to me, if you invest $7 million in a school, we're making a commitment to fill that school. It's not a sustainable plan to continue to build new schools and then continue to operate under-enrolled schools. I mean, it would be like every time I got a new job, I bought a new house, but I kept my old house. Eventually, I'm going to be bankrupt, and I could see the same thing happening to our district if we keep doing this. So I would say we have to go back to the under-enrolled schools. We need to find a way to fill those schools and maybe even do boundary adjustments in some ways, or find other ways to bring revenue into those schools through partnerships before you could possibly consider building a new school. Because like Ms. Frank mentioned, you need an M&O budget to operate a new school, and I guess unless I missed something, we don't.
Ms. Tweedy, I think this is getting off topic though, because we can discuss
Well,
that.
it's right here.
But building a new school is a future topic. We're just discussing the.
Well, he's saying based on this report. So anyway, those are my comments.
Yeah, and if I may just, we used the same level of data to be able to determine when we opened Sonoran Foothills, and so there are 800 students at Sonoran Foothills, and only its second year. The first year it's had all 8 grade levels. So again, just trying to note here, it takes 24 months to build a school, so it just, in terms of planning purposes, it needs to be on the radar screen, or another adjustment needs to be made to be able to accommodate that, which is, I think, to Ms. Tweedy's point, that we could also accommodate that either through busing or other boundary changes. There are options to consider. There are fewer options in areas where some of the growth is going to happen, like east of I-17. And between, I'll say, Happy Valley and Carefree Highway, we only have 2 campuses over there to be able to distribute students in that immediate area, and that's potentially going to be a high growth area. So whereas in other areas where we have more options to be able to, we could look at other things. So it depends on where the growth happens. We just need to be cognizant of the time frame necessary for building a new school. That's the intent of including it in this report.
Ms. O'Brien.
On page 10 is a list of charter schools. Are those all the charter schools, or just some of them, Jim or Mr. Magdaleno?
President Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, it's all of them that are inside of our boundaries proper, but we also publish information. I know that Ms. Allred does publish information for those that are just on the fringes of our district as well. So there's a more extensive list, just knowing that some of them are literally right on our boundary.
Okay. And do we ever look at the private schools within our boundaries, or just outside, depending on that data?
President Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, they are listed in the report, the private schools,
Okay.
in the full report, not in this presentation this evening, but there is very limited data in terms of the number of students. Again, by the name might suggest, they are private, so they don't have to disclose that information.
Right. And then my last comment is, Ms. Fisher, on that list of study sessions, I think it is time to have a discussion about boundaries and programs. I think that they are going to go hand in hand. We have some schools who are busting at the seams. We have some schools who need to look at increasing their enrollment and some ideas that I think we could all talk about at a later date. And I know that's starting to be a long list, but thank you.
Ms. Hardway? No?
I'm looking forward to a study session so we can look at some innovative ways to distribute our student population.
Consent agenda.
All right, so we had some alterations to the consent agenda. So I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve consent agenda items 8A through 8C, as well as 8G through 8K, and 8M and 8N. And if you need clarification, just ask.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the addenda contracts, voting by section on 8D1. Do I do it by section or?
Well, that's just a suggestion. Voting on it by section. The board can discuss if that's what they want to do.
Okay.
So,
I will second that. You said 8D1.
so we have a motion and a second. One of the, do that backwards. One of the as Ms. Tweedy so elegantly expressed earlier, we had some computer glitches and weren't able to really look at data. We had requested a lot of data in our last study session, and we just really haven't had time to, I mean, we had 24 hours to drill through all the data from the study session as well as the board book. And one of the biggest concerns many of us had, not all of us, but many of us had, was the large volume of addenda. And the reason I suggested that we, the motion be by section is because I just didn't know how else to break it up. If the board wants to amend the motion at some point, we can do that.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
for clarification, is section 1 the IBN section? Or, because I guess.
just counted like 1 was IBN, 2 was non-IBN, 3 was ratified, 4 was postseason
Okay,
pay.
maybe for clarification, if we're going to do it by section, we could call it by the title,
Yeah.
just so we all are sure what we're talking about.
I think that would be an excellent
Thank you.
idea. In the process of also looking at this, we did request, what is this actually? Okay. Okay. So one of the things that I had asked for is the handout that I just handed you says whether that individual is a 9-month employee, a 10-month employee, 12-month employee. C is coach, to give us some idea of what that looks like. And then I'm not really sure exactly how we want to approach this. IBN, I guess Mr. Miglerino, would you be the one to explain this to us, or would this be Dr. Galligan? IBN, basically, they've negotiated that these addenda would move forward.
President Fisher, that is correct. These are negotiated and included in the certified manual for the designated amounts that are there.
Okay. Does anyone have questions regarding this top section of addenda? Yep. Ms. Tweedy.
I believe I was copied on an email the rest of the board has not seen. Which section were we referring to when I was reading that some of this work has already been completed?
Oh, Dr. Reitenheimer, that was a question that I had sent to you, and it was, the rest of the board wasn't, because but no more than 2 board members can discuss it. The background of that email was a conversation I had with Dr. Reitenheimer this morning, and he indicated that some of these addenda have already been worked, and that it is just the districts paying these individuals for time already worked. And that's, I guess we need to know which ones those are.
So did we already approve them? Is that why they already worked?
All right, let me address one first. Yes, there are examples throughout this of budget approved dollars to deliver a service. So particularly the Deer Valley Online program, those teachers conducted the class during this past semester. So the reason you have to do these in arrears is because their payment is determined by the number of students they have. So you can't pay them up front. We couldn't do this at the beginning of the semester. We have to set aside dollars to pay for the courses to be taught, and then the dollar amount that is given to the individual teacher is a base amount and a dollar amount per student, because they have to correspond with, monitor and track individual students. And so someone doing that with 5 students or 10 students gets paid differently than somebody that does that for 20 students. And we don't know that until the completion of that work. But this is monies that were approved, set aside in the budget. We just, at the time that happens, you don't know how many kids are going to be enrolled in those classes. That's the best explanation I can give. Gail, help me.
President Fisher, Dr. V, that would be true. So kids sign up for online classes during a specific period of time, and then we have for high school classes a drop time similar to a brick and mortar class. So we don't know exactly how many students we'll have in each of the online courses until after that drop date has occurred.
So how much are you paying? Because I'm just trying to understand this. Are all the ones that are, okay, so none of what we're talking about here applies to the first section, right?
Yeah, look at the second section where it says DVOLP teacher.
So all the ones that are the DVOLP are the ones you're talking about.
DVOLP teacher. There are course builders. The second one down, course building, would not be a course. That's a person that is being paid to build a course for environmental science 1 and 2. So if you look at DVLOP teacher and then look beside that, you'll find Spanish or Media 1, 2, or Free Enterprise or whatever. Those are courses that were taught this past semester by one of our teachers or one of our employees, mostly our teachers. And we, as we were trying to go through your questions today, you can tell they're organized alphabetically. We could probably organize those differently so you could see them better in different clusters, but so if you were to look at any one of them, I'm looking at the next to the last teacher from Deer Valley High School. That's on page 1, DVLOP teacher at -ELA. She earned an addenda of $3,900 for teaching that course, and that number was dependent on the number of students that were enrolled in that class.
So what are they paid per student? Because these amounts are varying wildly.
President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, our online teachers are paid $500 for a minimum of 5 students or less in their online classes, then $100 for each additional student. So if we had a teacher who taught, whose class had 5 students in it, that would be $500. If they had 8 students in it, it would be $800. Each teacher that teaches a course follows that same thing. If we had a teacher who only had 2 students in that particular online course, they would still earn $500.
I have a clarifying question. So in terms of the online program and looking at some of the names that appear more than once, so I'll just I don't want to call people out by name, but I see an employee, district office, taught Science 1 and 2, and then was also a course builder for environmental science. So, and I'm assuming that employee also has additional duties that are performed as part of their job title. So the teaching and the course building with those responsibilities have been performed outside of the regular workday, outside of your 9 to 5, as it were.
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, that would be true. So that particular employee is a curriculum instruction and assessment specialist. So their job description for that is different than their job description to be a Deer Valley Online teacher for a course, as well as developing course content.
So that is additional work that's performed outside of the regular workday. So that's just what I wanted to clarify.
That is
Thank
correct.
So in the case of this, same, since we're on that's the top one. So you're saying that it's $5,400 because they had, yeah, 54 students? And we have numbers.
So, Ms. Fisher, that particular teacher this spring taught 4 courses. Environmental Science 1, Earth Science 2, Environmental Science, Earth Science 1, Earth Science 2, Environmental Science 1, Environmental Science 2. So the number of students would have been across those 4 courses.
Okay. And when, so, but she's also a content specialist, so she writes content, correct, in her regular job, and then also an addenda to write content outside of her regular job. Is that, just clarifying, is that what I heard?
Curriculum instruction and assessment specialists don't necessarily write content. This June, they'll be working with teachers to develop either new curriculum based on new adoptions or to update based on changes in standards. That is work that is done typically during our summer months. During the school year, they are working with teachers. They're working in PD. They're working with our administrators. They're working in our assessment system. You could say that they do develop content, but it's in the summer with our teachers.
When does this individual sleep? I said, when does this individual sleep? That's a very demanding schedule. I mean, I know to teach 4 or 5, this is somewhat tongue in cheek, but that's very demanding to teach that many sections as well as course builder on top of full time. That's not a criticism, that's just an observation.
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Tweedy.
What is the, I guess I want to understand how online course builders are paid, because I do see an online course builder at the top of this page that gets paid $10,000 addendum.
Okay.
And then I see other online course builders that get paid $750. So I'm just trying to understand the difference in their workloads.
Certainly. So our course builders are paid $1,250 per semester course. $250 per semester course. If there are 3 individuals who work together for a particular course, they would split that $1,250. If there is only 1 individual who works on the course development, then they would have that entire $1,250. That particular person that you are looking at worked on 20 courses. Some of those were in conjunction with others, and many of them were individually. That person did it. They were math courses.
What is this person's job? That's the thing, is this is where it gets confusing. Because when we start looking at the addenda, we're paying them to do an addenda. When do they do their job? Because you're writing 20 courses.
Ms. Fisher, that particular teacher teaches 12 of our high school math courses with a total of 91 students, and that is that person's day job. Outside of that day job, they work on, in this particular case, course building to help us keep a robust timeline to update our courses and add new courses.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes, Ms. O'Brien.
since our motion was to look at the IBN section, I think we should probably limit our discussion to that group if we're going to approve this by section, and then approve them and discuss them by section in order to be
I think
on
that's a
point.
good idea, because we did start speaking about the IBN one first. Was there any questions on the IBN only? Nope. Then can we, I guess we've already have a motion, so can we vote on?
Vote to approve 8D1, which would be the IBN
Well, I think,
addenda.
we didn't actually completely, we just voted that we were going to go by section. So let's go ahead and can we get a motion? Yeah.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the IBN addenda contracts.
Make it a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Got that section done. I guess so now that we're on the non-IBN, I guess the other question I would have is our next session is ratified. If these individuals have already worked it, it's not really an alternative, it's not coming forward to us for, then why aren't they put in ratified? And why do we have them mixed in with all these other addendas that potentially could or could not? I mean, they'd be something different. Because when you're going to bring something before a board that is already done, it's not really, we're not approving it, we're ratifying it because it's done. So I guess that would be one of my primary questions is why are they listed here in that way?
President Fisher, I'll take a stab at this because we're the ones that actually compile the list, and the ratified ones are those that are in language that are prescribed to us that we just happen to find out after, too late for us to get in front of the board to be able to effectively make the payments because of just the way that they are actually presented. So there's only 3 of them, and usually ratified would be a small number. Why we don't include the others in which have completed, the only explanation I can offer to you would be that they're not prescribed in language that's approved by the board as as these others are in the certified manuals, but they are prescribed in terms of a consistency of how they are paid. Again, as Dr. Galligan mentioned, based on a set schedule.
Okay. Because one of the problems I have with voting on this, specifically this non-IBN addenda, I did pull some of these directly into the data of our current employees, which wasn't quite what I had originally intended to get, but it served, it told me more than what I intended, but it wasn't what I intended, so I'll submit that to you in a separate email. However, I was concerned that I found a lot of inconsistencies. I found people, and I did, like I said, we're talking 24 hours. I'm good with Excel, but I'm not that good. And so some of them, I'm showing that there's, well, what's the E? Is E something other than? E is coach, what's E? Is that exempt? Is that external? Is that exempt?
President Fisher, are only e-school, so they only teach e-school.
Okay, because that may be part of the factor. Because one of the things that I looked at was what the person's regular job is. Because when I looked at the file that you had sent, I saw a lot of where we had, and this is a conversation, part of mine and Dr. Weitenheimer's conversation this morning was a person's title, and it doesn't matter who the person is, but the title is coordinator of X, and the addenda is to do X. I have concern when the addenda matches the actual job title of the individual. And the other thing I noticed is there was a significant number that, and it could be in that file somewhere, that didn't have a quote-unquote day job. So my second question or what pops into my mind is, are we offering addenda to people who have left the district and are no longer with us? And if that's the case, I'd like to know why, because we have, and I'll phrase it exactly the way I did it in the conversation this morning. We sit here on this board and we have teachers stand at that podium and tell us that their kids aren't going to get Christmas and that they can't afford to feed their kids. If we have opportunities that we can offer to someone, I would say, in my opinion, we darn straight better be grabbing a teacher in our district versus an external person. So are these people all our employees, and are these our teachers at our campuses? Or I didn't see a consistency in that, and that to me was very concerning and really gave me pause to whether or not I could approve addenda when it's just not clear even what it is. And on 24 hours notice, I will tell you, I have not had opportunity to, this one section specifically, analyze the full data. Ms. Tweedy?
I would like to agree.
Like an answer to that question first?
Yeah.
We have an answer to the question, if you want it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
President
Gail?
Fisher, I can talk to the Deer Valley Online Learning Program. We have 3 teachers who teach courses that are Deer Valley Online teachers only, who are not on contract with Deer Valley. So they are outside of our Deer Valley Online Learning. We also have 38 to 43 teachers within our district who teach this past spring Deer Valley courses. Of those 3 teachers who teach courses, one of them, it was a previous AP here who continued with the courses that she taught in social studies. One of them was a previous math teacher here who severed her position here in the district when she was awarded a job with Grand Canyon University. It was just after the school year had begun, and it was difficult to find a teacher at that point, so she graciously stayed on with her courses. And then the other one was posted. We had 2 teachers for Spanish, one in district, one out of district. We offered it to the in-district teacher, and that teacher just declined, and so that 3rd position, which was a Spanish position, went to the outside applicant. We follow HR protocols when we are hiring. However, when a teacher in an online program is not performing their duties adequately, then we follow all of the normal HR procedures. If a teacher is performing their duties, they continue in that same position and that course or courses in the next semester and the next year. So that's been the online procedure that we have utilized. Most important to note is that similar to our principals in a brick and mortar campus, they look to identify the teachers who are going to be the best fit for their classes, and generally those that have experience and good recommendations. We are very similar in the online learning program, that we seek those teachers who have successfully made the transfer from a brick and mortar classroom to an online learning classroom, and it's very different, and have had some experience and shown that they are quite capable of managing online courses.
Okay. Mr. Migliorino, the file you sent us from the Friday update with the requests, it looked to me like the data was what has been paid out, not what is projected, is what's been paid out, correct?
President Fisher, it was current as of that day, so I pulled the data from everything that was loaded in our financial system as of last Friday.
So from Visions. Now, did that include the end-of-year contract, the end of contract? I don't know if you guys do an end-of-year payment. Or do you guys
you mean
spread
like
it out?
a balance of
the way
contract?
we've always worked, the districts I've worked for is you have your, the employees who select their 26 pay versus the 20 pay, and so then when you get to this point in the year, there's the end of contract payment, which is a balloon payment, or in our cases, a series of payments that we hold checks for them. Did that file include end of contract payment?
Ms. Fisher, yes, it included the total anticipated cost for each of the positions that were identified.
So it wasn't just the actuals, it also had the projected remaining balance of contract?
Correct. It was the projected amount for each position, regardless of how they're being paid.
Okay, because some of these that I threw in there, I was shocked at when you throw the addenda on top of their contract. There's some that are making $15,000 more than their principal. And I'm sure we have some teachers that would be saying, well, I would like to even make a quarter of that. So I just really think the addenda that sits before us really needs consideration. Is there a way, this is just my opinion, it's a board of 5, not a board of 1. I've always said that. Is there a way to determine what parts of this current non-IBN addenda are, for voting purposes, we can vote, are things that are done deals? We have really no choice. We're ratifying. We're not approving. We're ratifying. Is there a way to segregate those out from the others as presented, or is there a way we can motion to get those? Yes, Ms. Tweedy.
I would like to concur with Ms. Fisher saying I feel slightly exasperated by the volume of information I was giving on Monday, and if I can't vote informed, I'm not going to vote. So I do think that, possibly this situation could have been prevented by emailing me the information, but we knew we were having issues. But here we are in this situation. I do not fully understand all these addendums. I did not have time to formulate my question, organize this. This is in alphabetical order. It's not even by category. I can't make heads or tails out of this, and I'm not going to vote for something that I don't understand.
I would like an answer to that question if possible. Is there a way for us to determine on this list as it sits which are essentially being ratified versus which are addenda? Because the Friday update stated that there was a lot of stuff going on towards the end of the year. I know there's a lot of things that will occur, so there are truly addenda for things that have not yet occurred. Versus things that were, I don't want a teacher to go without their pay if they've already completed the work for a class that they're teaching. But I also don't want to approve 10 other addenda because they happen to be in the same list with that teacher that I want to pay. Is there a way for us to pull those out specific on this list?
President Fisher, unfortunately, the way that it's presented to you this evening, I don't know that there's a simplistic way to be able to say these
have already
meet that
occurred?
criteria, and these do not. They're intermixed with all of those that are listed in the non-IBN, include some things that are in language, like the licensing for certain individuals.
Yep.
They have provided that evidence to us. It's not in the IBN addenda, but we have an agreement that says that we honor that. So,
where is that agreement? Is that a board-approved agreement, like in policy or something, that we're going to pay for someone's license? I'm asking because I don't know. I'm not picking on them, on those individuals. I mean, do we pay teachers for their recertifications that they need, or licenses, or if you have to renew? I don't know.
I believe, President Fisher, to answer your question, I believe that is part of our salary schedule. There's a footnote on the salary schedule for certain licensing. I believe there are 2 of them that are embedded in the non-IBN addenda. So it's not, there's a list of specific IBN addenda that are allocations that we give to the schools. And then there are some non-IBN addenda that are part of the approved salary schedules that have that are related to individuals' credentials. In this case, psychologist licensing, clinical psychologist licensing.
For me, I would like to be able to make heads or tails of this one section of the list before I vote on it. I can't speak for other board members, but that's how I feel. I would like to personally, but I'm not going to make a motion unless someone else feels the same. I would like to table this section of the addenda until the next meeting.
I agree.
I have,
Ms. O'Brien.
thank you. There are quite a few course builder folks on here. I didn't quite get through all of to count, but I would have a question for Ms. Galligan. What that delay in approving this would do to our course development?
President Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, I'm only going to speak to the Deer Valley Online Learning Program. There are 38 teachers who work spring courses who are listed here. There are 7 course builders who are teachers who worked on courses this past spring. So they have worked on that work up through now. And so it would just be that they've done work and the delay in the pay for that work.
Okay, and then an ASU I Teach AZ mentor. Is that work completed, or is that for future work, or can you help me with that?
President Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, I don't have that answer in front of me, but I'd be more than happy to get that for you.
Okay, I was just trying to see if we could,
I get where you're going. I did the same thing. I kind of went through and marked all the ones that were the DVLOP to see if we could.
well, and you have coaches, I mean, you have coaches who have coached, you have,
Yeah, they're not part of that group.
well, but there are a couple on this group that are getting paid out of tax credit funds, and
Tax credit funds.
There's organization sponsors, and I have a question. So, looking at all the possibilities, if we were to approve this tonight, at what date would these teachers receive their pay? What would be the anticipated pay date were the board to approve the non-IBN addendas? And I'm asking because it's summer, and I know what it's like to try to survive the summer on teacher pay. So,
the reason for me grimacing, and so I'm going to intentionally stall here, is I don't know when the pay dates are for our district.
Mr. Miclerino, I thought you knew everything.
I have a calendar. I blame this on direct deposit and some of my loved ones.
But it takes a week to process Envision, so you gotta make sure.
Oh, this Friday. I'm getting some help from folks. So the next pay date is June 8th, and so if they were approved tonight, they could be included on the June 8th pay. If they're not approved tonight, the next pay would be June 22nd.
And I'm assuming we would need to have this taken care of before the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
I mean, we would need to take care of it at the very next board meeting.
That-
So we're looking at a potential delay of a few weeks.
2 weeks to be precise.
Okay.
And I did do a quick count. There are 95 non-IBN addenda, so I did a quick count of how many have anything with DVOLP in them, and there are 47 of the 95 are involved with our online program. Just
And all
trivia.
47 of those have already completed the work. They're done. They're a
They-
done deal.
the work has been completed.
Could we potentially motion to the DVOLP items and table the others?
Ms. Fisher, I have a problem with that because we're just kind of guessing. We don't know if the ASU I Teach mentor has done that work. We probably do know that the baseball assistant that's being paid out of student activity funds, maybe they've done their work.
I would hope not, because that would be violating the
Or
student
not. Oh,
activities.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I would have a serious
We've got
problem with that.
tutoring, 2 sessions, tax credit. I mean, we don't know what's been done and what hasn't been done. And this conversation probably needs to, I'll say it again, another study session, but we've been receiving addenda all year long, and there have been questions throughout, maybe individual board members, maybe a group of board members, I don't know. So I think that instead of penalizing the people that have been doing the work or seemingly penalizing them by not respecting the work that has been done or that we have charged them to do, perhaps we understand what this process is, and we have those that are making these decisions explain to us how you're paid and what these non-IBN are. I mean, the word IBN, we don't even have IBN anymore. I mean, I get that we've been using it. But, you know, it's been a long time, and I think that we really need to sit down and understand what the process is, how these people get paid, what the line is that my job is this, my IBN is this, even though it seems like it's the same thing. And perhaps there are some changes that we need to make when we pay that out. But I really don't believe that it is within the spirit of what we do to penalize people that we have charged to do work or that have already done the work.
Well, and I would like to say that is why we're trying to figure out a way to identify the ones that have already done the work. Because as we have found in the recent month, there has been a lot of things that have gone unapproved by this board and just have been because they've always been. And I don't believe that was doing our due diligence as a board to just let things go by because they've always gone by. I think it's our responsibility to question, especially when we're talking to almost $200,000.
And I agree with that. I do agree with that, but I don't believe that at this moment in time, since this very board that sits here has been receiving addenda since January, that we picked tonight to have everything in such detail that they were not ready for this type of questioning. So meanwhile, the employee ends up waiting for us. I want to go through this. I want to understand what the process is, but I don't want to penalize employees
I beg to differ.
for
This
that long.
conversation did not just start yesterday. It did not just start tonight. This has been for quite a while. In fact, I specifically asked, based on the information we had requested as a board at our last meeting, I had, at our budget study session, requested that unnecessary addenda, I guess, or not be put on this agenda at all, so that we could have an opportunity as a board to truly look at the data because we requested it. I don't just request data because I just want to make anybody give me lots of data. I have a full-time job. Trust me, I don't relish drilling through it, but I also am not going to. I'm not willing to. It takes I'm just one vote. All I'm saying is I am not willing to vote to pass this section of addenda without understanding the full scope of it. Ms. Tweedy.
Well, I would just wanted to know, Jim and Gail, we could go through this list, not tonight, but we could go through this list and very easily determine whether the job was done or not done. We could do that.
Dr. V, to
Was that
answer
a
your
question?
yes.
Yes.
It sounded
That's a
not like a question, but we know which of these. We can't do number 1 yes, number 3 no, number 4. But if this board said we authorize in the non-IBN all addenda that is for work that is completed, we could do that. We couldn't do it tonight, but the direction from the board would be, those would be the only ones, and you would either see or get more information or whatever from the rest.
I move that the board approve to pay in the non-IBN section all those who the work has been completed.
I would second that.
If I may interject, just to make sure I understand, so we process this to your expectations. Completed as of this hour, this day, this week?
No, I think they should already have been completed.
Yes.
Been completed prior to today's date?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm not trying to.
Right. But I would like to add to that we want a reporting of the difference in the two, so we at least know what it is we just approved. Because we have a list here before us that, again, tells us that we have $191,000.
Yeah. Yes. That there would be a report on additional on those that are not paid. We would receive additional information and be able to have that would be on the next meeting agenda.
They would have to do that in order to.
They would never get approved until that happened.
Right.
That's
That's
exactly
why I'm
Bring it
saying
back
I would like
to
to add
us.
to the motion that anything that was not completed prior to today would be moved to the next
Board meeting.
The next board meeting. Because we have to say we're doing something with the other half,
Okay.
or other quarter, or whatever it is. Okay, do we need to, before we do that, do we need to amend the motion, or is my addition acceptable to your motion?
Your addition is acceptable to my motion.
Jenny, is that acceptable to your second?
That is acceptable.
Okay,
But I
Ms.
think-
Tweedy, your statement, please.
I guess, and I would just add, because I don't know when else I can make this statement if we vote on this. So it has, when we get our next budget, then I would want a list of all all addendas that people are believing we're authorizing payment on when we approve the budget.
And I do think that would be good for us. Yeah, we're going to bring that into our future question. But for right now, the motion on the table
Okay.
is that we will approve all addenda of work that has already been completed, and we will receive a report of all addenda and it should not be started. So let's not start it until it's board approved. So we need to get that so that we can approve to move forward
In the non-IBN section.
in the
Are we still discussing?
non-IBN section.
Then,
Correct.
then I do have a quick question,
Yes,
if
Ms.
I
Frank.
may. So I'm just, looking at last name on page 2. It says Title I Principal Summer Work. So if we're saying this work can't be started until we've approved it, I guess my question would be, when was that summer work intended to be done?
That's an excellent question, kind of what Ms. O'Brien had asked as well. Dr. Galligan, do you know the summer work, particularly the Title I work?
President Fisher, Dr. Weitenheimer, we have our Title I schools begin work with teachers beginning Monday. June 5th, we'll start any number of our Title I campuses and their work. So by the time an addenda would be brought to you, again, for our Title I schools, they will have already started work. It's been planned, teachers are ready, administrators are ready, and it's a go. Some of them are PLC work, some of them have brought in speakers, so it's in plan, and it's part of their Title I plan as well.
And are those addenda coming from Title I funds?
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, yes, indeed.
Ms. Fisher, I have something else. What if we are we have a motion that says we will pay for the work that has started, and possibly for work that is necessary to be started? What is going to be the difference for us in understanding by putting the leftovers on the next board meeting? What is going to take place in between now and then for us to understand if this addenda is necessary or not?
I would hope that our administration is going to provide us information that would help us to understand what the other addendas are.
Well, if they couldn't explain it to us tonight, how are they going to explain that in what? In a non-interactive meeting? I mean, how are we going to do this?
Yeah, Ms. Tweedy.
I don't understand that.
I'm completely frustrated. I have said since I've been on this board, I wanted a clear definition of what constitutes professional responsibilities and paid time outside of the workday, and I wanted it applied uniformly to all groups. Then this weekend, I think we all knew Vibe wasn't working. We received an email from the board secretary that said, I'm emailing you attachments because Vibe's not working. I was told it was in Vibe. I went home Friday. I tried to get it. I sent an email immediately and said, I can't open Vibe. I tried to do my homework for tonight. And no one answered me. And then another board member jumped in and said, I can't open mine. Then we were sent a bad link. Another board member said, I can't open this bad link. So all weekend, I tried to do my homework for tonight. And for people to sit here and pretend that I am somehow disrespecting teachers or people who have worked because I can't vote on something because I wasn't given the information is ridiculous. The taxpayers of this community elected me to vote informed. And if people don't want to give me information, guess what? I can't vote.
No one is saying that anybody is being disrespectful. We're trying to work through this. So there is an impact, though, to, if I could count them, 3 folks, because according to our current motion as amended, there are 3 Title I folks on here that cannot start work if their addendas are not approved.
Well, we did discuss having a potential phone meeting.
So
How fast could you get the information to us? And would we even have time to review it, to have a meeting at the end of the week?
I guess go ahead.
Because, like I said, I don't, without understanding that I'm going to pay X for whatever, it may seem like a small amount to you or to someone else, but when you start adding it up, it is a large amount in the grand scheme of, again, like I said, the teacher that stands before me that says, I can't have Christmas.
I'm not trying to suggest that it's too small of amount or that it does not add up at all. I'm trying to find a way for us to have our questions answered. Clearly, we have a process issue that we need to look at and modify so that this board can have their questions answered and we can move through. But tonight we're sitting in a situation where I understand that not all board members feel they have the information. So I'm trying to find a solution to get us through so that the district can continue to operate and we can approve things. I guess what I would ask, Mrs. Fisher, is that the Title I principal summer work and that is on here for 2 people and a Title I teacher on assignment summer work, those would be outside of their normal duties, if I'm not correct, because principals and teachers are already done. Principals end this week, is that correct? So if their work is starting on Monday, it would be outside of their normally assigned duties. So I would ask to amend my motion to include those 3 employees.
Here's the problem I have, is you'll make a motion, you'll amend it. We're going to approve this section, now we're going to add these 3, and then there's going to be another, well, but what about? And then we're going to keep adding, so at some point, we get to where we're just not answering.
Then are we going to have are we going to be able to have a meeting before Friday to accommodate?
And that's my question. Is
not delaying work, given the fact that there are already schedules and people set up.
And I had a question why some Title I principals are getting paid for their summer work and other ones are going in unpaid.
Ms. President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, not all of the Title I principal summer work has been brought forward. Those go to cabinet first for approval, and I know that there are 2 that will be in cabinet this upcoming Monday, and then they would be to you at the next board meeting. So our Title I principals are getting their documentation in to Mr. Ettenborough, and then from there it comes to me, and then from me it goes into cabinet for approval. So they are in process right now.
Well, if I may make a
I-
few.
But Ms. O'Brien would like to amend her motion. If the board wants to, if she wants to amend, you want a second, the board wants to do that. But like I said, at some point we have to have a point.
I understand there's a time to draw the line, and if the board does not see fit to add those additional Title I positions, I did find a fourth one to do that in lieu of having a meeting, and we're going to have a meeting so that their work is not delayed, then I'm fine with having a phone meeting, but I want it set that we will have a phone meeting so that their work can start on Monday. This board should not stand in the way of that work occurring.
I don't believe we're standing in the way. I think lumping stuff together and not giving information is standing in the way. I'm not taking responsibility for this. But the other thing is, how could other principals they haven't brought it to us yet. So are we standing in the way of them too because it wasn't brought to us?
They're starting later.
They'll start,
Their
so it
work
sounds like
starts
they'll start later. I submit, and I agree, we have a process issue, and I want to address that, but I also want to get through tonight.
Absolutely. Mr. Miclarino, could you get us the data on the remaining items if we approve the ones that have already occurred? Could you get us the data? Ladies, how long would it take to review? So could we?
Well, that's tomorrow. None of us can start until Wednesday, Ms. Tweedy.
So could you get it to us by end of business tomorrow so that we could review and have a Friday evening phone meeting or some meeting? We'll have to work on setting it up. I mean, I don't know.
President Fisher, just looking at the data again, 47 of the 95 are related to our online program. It's 72% of the total dollars, so 137 of the $191, $191,000. So I think we're talking about just the balance, you know, so it's half of the list and only 28% of the total dollars. So I think that it is possible for us to try and put something together by the end of business tomorrow.
I would just like to add to Mrs. O'Brien's point that clearly we have a process problem. And I think
that's a future.
right, IBN agenda, non-IBN agenda items have been, people have questioned that and asked for information, and clearly it was a big mess over the weekend. I'm just as frustrated as Ms. Tweedy that we did not get information in a timely manner. Personally, I'm not willing to hold up payments to teachers who have already completed work. And I also do not feel it would be right to hold our Title I summer work that's already planned hostage because of problems getting us information, as frustrated as I am with it. So I would have to say that I agree with Mrs. O'Brien.
Okay, so do we want to, this is for the board as a whole, do we want to have Ms. O'Brien amend it to add those 4 positions? And then we just get the others and then put them on the next agenda? Or do we want to try and slam a meeting in telephonically?
Well, I think Mrs. O'Brien's amendment is great, and I'm thinking that you're misunderstanding or not hearing what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the process, as I've been saying, is not working for us because we don't understand it, and whether it needs to be changed or not, that's something that you figure out when you have a meeting. But what my question is so if we have 12 people left on here that we're going to carry over to the next board meeting, what difference will it make if we still don't understand the process or don't agree with the process? So at some point, I think we need to have a detailed work session to understand how IBN is given out or decided.
I think absolutely. I think we're all in agreement that we need a detailed work session. What we're not in agreement with is, I'm not, like I said, I'm not willing to vote on the few without data, without time, without information. We know, we have discussed, and we know the ones that Ms. O'Brien has specifically brought forward to approve. Those are known. I think if we want to amend that motion and approve those, I think we're,
I prefer to amend it so that we're not rushing the rest of the.
please do so.
Okay, I amend the motion to approve all the non-IBN addenda that has been completed, as well as to include the Title I work that is going to begin on Monday.
And I will second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so then the remainder that are not falling in that category is what we need reported back so that we can, and put those on the next agenda, okay? Now we have our ratified, so these
Oh, can I-
ratified implies to me that it's done as well.
President Fisher, again, yes, the ratified, it is complete, but it's, the difference being it's actually prescribed in a formulated process.
Then I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the ratified addenda contracts.
Second.
Any conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Postseason pay, I'm assuming this is our standard where we're paying our coaches for the additional training and whatnot that we.
President Fisher, that's correct. The additional time for
Playoffs and
extending
whatnot.
their season, for the success of extending their season into the post.
Okay.
Then I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the postseason pay addenda contracts.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to our next item. Cooperative purchase agreements.
So, this one is. When is it? Sorry.
The cooperative
Oh, okay.
purchasing.
All right, so I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to give the administration authorization to enter into additional cooperative purchasing contracts for the fiscal year 2016-17, consent agenda item 8E.
Second.
Okay, there was the question that was sent in, Ms. Tweedy.
I just wanted Mr. Miglerino to explain why we're spending $1 million on flooring. I wanted more information.
President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, thank you for the question. And there's a little bit of an explanation in that there was a little confusion. The authorization that we're asking for, or that we, whenever we ask for it from the board, is based on a fiscal year cycle. We are anticipating the facilities department schedules their work over the summer. They don't necessarily care that our fiscal year ends in the middle of when we're asking them to get the work done because there's such a limited amount of time. So they did ask for more than actually is going to be accomplished in this time period from May and June, and it's a considerable amount of difference. We have about $150,000 worth of scheduled flooring projects at various schools. The authorization was for $1 million, which we have a budget on a calendar year cycle, not the fiscal year cycle, of $750,000 for flooring projects throughout the year. So this authorization could have been significantly reduced from what we presented to you, and we'd be happy to amend that if that's the pleasure of the board. We will only spend up to the projects that we have identified for the $150,000. Those projects include Canyon Springs, Diamond Canyon, Legend Springs, Mirage, Mountain Shadows, and Vista Peak specifically.
Oh, it's multiple schools.
I would like to amend the amount. $1 million was a lot of money. I don't want to vote to approve that.
Now, this is just a cooperative agreement, so what is that what we're currently sitting at? In other words, we're currently sitting at the need. What is the need?
So the need is $150,000 for those projects I just identified.
But is that going to take us all the way through the end of June?
It'll take us through the end of June as we have planned. And it's just for those projects. It would not give us any latitude in case something was to be unearthed that we don't know about.
So if we have something that comes up, like you pull it up and the subfloor has a crack in it, we need to repair it, something like that, then you're going to be forced to come back.
That would be correct.
Because the reason I'm asking that question is there a way, I mean, I would say it's 100 and whatever for the flooring known. Is there a more reasonable amount that we can put that will allow for a minor adjustment, maybe not up to the million, so maybe add an additional,
I think reasonable, we would like to use 20% for unknown factors. So I would say just around that to $175,000 would be an appropriate number.
okay. So can we, how do we amend
I move to amend the motion to
motion, though we're amending the item?
move to amend the wholesale floors Inc. line item to be $175,000.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then we're moving on to,
No.
All right, consent agenda item 8F. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to give the administration authorization to enter into additional sole source contracts for fiscal year 2016-17.
Second.
Hold that again. There were 2 items on there, and one was IEP Pro and one was a preschool software. And both of the amounts had doubled. I think one went from 35,000 to 70, and I'm trying to remember the other one. So anyway, I was curious why both amounts doubled, and I was also curious why IEP Pro was a sole source. Did we only get one bid? Are they the only company that does IEP software? I don't understand that.
President Fisher, Ms. Tweedy, and again, thank you for the questions, because once again, I think we could have represented this better. The reason for IEP Pro being a sole source is because we have a long-standing relationship with this company. They're not the only company that does this work. The increase that we were actually seeking is we do have a new Medicaid billing provider, and to make the functionality work with the Medicaid billing provider and the IEP Pro software so that there is not duplicative work done by the providers of those services, the company IEP Pro, which is owned by MediaNet, is how it's represented here, has asked for us to pay to build that functionality in. That cost was $3,000, not $30,000, and so it doubled the amount there. Again, this is an inflated amount that would not necessarily be needed, and I think to add to the confusion is we have all of the renewals on deck for renewing these software licenses, which we will expect to do in the month of June for the upcoming fiscal year. And so that both of those things contributed to the amount being inflated. So again, I would suggest on the MediaNet item that amount could be reduced from 35 to 70 as it currently is printed, to be amended to be $35,000 to $40,000. Which would cover the needs for the rest of the fiscal year. The second item, which is sole source, is Hatch Learning, in which we are doubling the number of students in our preschool program that will be participating in that particular learning system.
oh, it's a per student.
It's a per student base, yes.
Okay. Well, before we make that amendment, Darcy, Jim, if you're preparing then to pay for next year's expenditures, your licensing agreements, and the only reason I'm asking is because that's what I'm currently doing as well, is, getting ready for my license up for the next year. Are you then going to have to come and bring this back to us again in July?
President Fisher, we plan to bring all of the renewals back to you in June in advance of July. So yes, you'll see this again, but it'll be a much
Oh, it'll be for the next year, but
correct.
so
And
if we don't adjust it, are you going to have to bring it back again?
we need the adjustment to be able to solidify the contract to build the functionality.
No, I
And
know
in addition to
that.
that, we need authorization for next year for the renewal
So
of
you're
the
still going to have
software.
to bring it back even if we adjust it down. If we adjust it down, if we don't adjust it down, let's leave it as it is. Are you still going to have to bring it back for the June work?
That is still our plan, just
Plan.
to
Okay.
be consistent with our process.
Yeah, then we can drop it down, and then
I
I just
move-
didn't want us to have to do it again if you didn't have to.
I move to amend the table for MediaNet to read $35,000 to $40,000.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we are on consent agenda item 8L. I will defer moving this item to Ms. Tweedy, and I will recuse myself from voting on this item.
I think we forgot to. Oh. No, it was all approved.
Thank you.
Just read the bottom.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Deer Valley Unified School District and Maricopa County Air Quality Department for the state clean diesel program subaward.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And we're moving on to action items 9A.
Right. I move that the
If he's watching, he's.
All right, I move that the governing board approve the recommendation for the superintendent of the Deer Valley Unified School District.
B.
Gotta say his name.
Oh. Dr. Curtis Finch.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a future new superintendent.
Oh.
Probably asleep.
Sorry about that.
It is midnight. He's probably asleep.
Okay. So on to action item 9B. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the human resources changes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Sorry. President Fisher, governing board members, Dr. Weitenheimer, I'd also like to recognize in your approval of the HR changes, Ms. Samantha Slew will be the new assistant principal at West Wing, and she is accompanied by Dr. Price Berry, the current principal at West Wing.
Okay.
Thank you for
He's never going to want to
staying.
come to another board meeting, I'm just saying.
I think that takes us.
Okay, the other two we have removed for the next,
We're previewing.
so now we're at our previews.
Ready? President Fisher, governing board members, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests. Tonight we will share work that has been in process to support the STEM initiatives already in place across our campuses. Michelle Coots, CTE Curriculum Specialist, Jamie Fitzpatrick, Manager of CTE, Kathy Borgeson, Manager of Academics and Assessment, and I will share the work in the STEM area of computer science education that will bolster and support our STEM academies, pre-engineering programs like Project Lead the Way, and our schools who are either ready to move forward or already pushing ahead with STEM and computer science. The Computer Science Committee has recommendations for the progression of learning timeline across our schools from preschool through high school. As a reminder, we shared information regarding the committee work from last April through December in a board report at the December 13th board meeting. That report also included a DVUSD definition for computer science education framework and computational thinking.
President Fisher, governing board members, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests. Our committee was formed in response to high demand for computer science and coding education by students, teachers, administrators, and employers. The scope of work for this committee, although entered on computer science education, has implications for teacher certification, expanding options available for students to begin receiving computer science learning experiences as young as preschool, creating a computer science progression of learning, professional learning for teachers, and funding for CS professional learning equipment and course implementation. Stakeholders represented on the committee were rich in experience and knowledge in computer science education and industry. Representatives from technology corporations such as Honeywell, Apple, Mission Dynamics, and Cisco work side by side with community members and educators from the elementary level through high school, including WestMech, to develop an implementation plan for extraordinary opportunities for all students in computer science in the upcoming school years. As DVUSD aims to stay at the forefront of opportunities for students in computer science and coding, careful consideration was given to provide opportunities for exposure, venues for enrichment, and a clear defined career pathway option. Stakeholder input from educators of our youngest learners to business professionals hiring Deer Valley graduates was critical in establishing the multi-year implementation plan provided to you. Collaboration among internal and external stakeholders, as highlighted here, spanned 12 months in multiple arenas, leading to a draft implementation plan addressing a broad scope of student, teacher, and campus needs across 4 K-12 grade bands. Future expansions include pre-kindergarten.
President Fisher, governing board members, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests, the work of our committee to date has 2 distinct phases. Within the first phase, we examined computer science education and conducted research to build a shared understanding among committee members and for DVUSD. Through this process, we compiled a DVUSD computer science framework and definition of computational thinking, which is a key skill developed through computer science education. To inform our plans, we reviewed existing offerings within DVUSD to understand the progress made already by individual campuses and by programs. We then invited students from elementary schools up through high schools to share about their experiences with computer science. During phase 1, we also began to explore resources that we can utilize to support the delivery of computer science education in DVUSD. Phase 1 of our work brought us from May through November of 2016. From that point, we transitioned into phase 2 with a focus on developing computer science implementation plans for DVUSD. These plans include a stakeholder communication plan to reach those beyond our committee participants and an implementation recommendation for computer science in DVUSD for the 2017-18 school year and beyond.
President Fisher, governing board members, Dr. Weitenheimer, and guests, a plan for communicating the development of computer science learning opportunities in the district to stakeholders has been created. The plan outlines the stakeholders who need to know about the committee's progress towards computer science education implementation in the district. The identified communication methods include various meetings and professional development opportunities, electronic means such as DV Air, DV Voice, and Governing Board Friday updates, and events such as STEM nights, Governing Board meetings like tonight's meeting. The plan also includes who will deliver the communication and the dates targeted for delivery.
Utilizing a phased-in approach similar to the Tech Rich initiative, we plan to encourage and support implementation of computer science education from our youngest grades through high school. The timeline includes integration of computer science and computational thinking to strengthen existing programs and curriculum. The timeline also focuses in 4 areas: staffing, technology, delivery, and enrichment. This will include supporting our K-8 schools with their choice of models that could include learning centers within the general classroom setting for students to collaborate on problem-solving challenges, extension learning for students reaching their learning targets already within the classroom, tangible resources for students with special education classrooms to learn concepts such as sequencing and estimation, enhancing existing learning opportunities for students during specials and library time, resources for use in PE for motor skills and arts for demonstrating creativity using technology. And as some of our campuses are already exploring extracurricular opportunities for students beyond the academic day, such as clubs like Moxie Girls at Sierra Verde, and then our partnerships with community education. Our recommendation is that every elementary school and every middle school student should learn the foundational basics, and every high school student should have the opportunity to take dedicated course sequences. We also know that females and minorities are underrepresented in STEM-type fields such as computer science. One of the easiest ways for a campus to start is by implementing the Hour of Code each December. The Hour of Code started as a 1-hour introduction to computer science designed to demystify code and coding, to show that anybody can learn the basics, and to broaden participation in the field of computer science. Last December, a number of our schools participated in an Hour of Code. It was very cool. From phones to cars to medicine, technology touches every part of our lives. If you can create technology, you can change the world. Computer science develops students' computational and critical thinking skills and shows them how to create, not simply use, new technologies. This fundamental knowledge is needed to prepare students for the 21st century, regardless of their ultimate field of study or occupation. The knowledge and skills learned from studying computer science prepares students for careers in a variety of sectors. Some examples would be, of course, informational technology, designing security software and hardware systems, to manufacturing, designing and using simulations to improve products, in healthcare, exploring the vast quantities of data produced by new DNA sequencing techniques and developing remote monitoring systems for patients. In financial services, designing and overseeing automated trading systems and services. The breadth of ways in which computing knowledge prepares our students for multiple careers is borne out as we look at people working in computing occupations by sector. Over 70% of computing occupations are outside the information technology industry. 9% are in information services, 12% are in financial services, 36% are in professional and business services, 7% are in government and public education services, and 12% are in manufacturing. Our schools are implementing computer science and STEM in many different ways, as was seen at the O'Connor District STEM Night, and they called this conference earlier this month. This progression of learning and timeline will help keep us unified across all of our campuses in their approach to STEM education and computer science learning. We will bring back the progression of learning timeline for computer science education as an action item in the next board meeting in June. Thank you.
Well, I think some information that would be helpful for me, financial implications, what resources would we need to purchase, where are we as far as our current technology, and what would the financial implication or impact be. The second was workload implications for teachers. Are we looking at hiring dedicated computer science teachers? Particularly at the elementary level, is that going to be another special area class? And if not, if that's something that the classroom teacher is going to take on, then what are the workload implications for the training, the professional development, and then adding one more, I don't want to say one more thing, but additional subject that they're now expected to teach. And then also scheduling implications, if it's going to be an additional special area that students would access at the elementary level in the same way that they would PE or art or music, then what are the implications for that? So those are three things that came to my mind.
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, we can certainly bring that information back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I look forward to seeing it again and with the answers to Ms. Frank's questions. HR Information Management System, Ms. Jenna Moffett.
Good evening, President Fisher, Governing Board members, Dr. Weitenheimer. Tonight I'm going to be previewing for you this evening our recommendation for a new information management system in human resources. Actually, some of it is a repeat and other items are new. Driving factor for us, these are items that we have recognized over the years. And then if you recall, in 2015, we hired an outside agency to perform an efficiency audit here at the district level. There were some specific things that they identified in human resources as needing improvement for efficiency, and these things are listed here in front of you on this slide. They believed that we needed to look at streamlining our systems for absence management and leave submissions, that we needed to look at streamlining our electronic recs, our hiring processes, and our methods that we use in position control. And in looking at these things, we knew that we needed to refine or perhaps adopt new systems in order to achieve this. So we began the RFP process earlier in this spring. And when we were looking at companies, these are some of the benefits that we wanted to achieve by looking through what they were able to offer. So we needed to make sure that they had a current platform. The platform that we use right now is called Winocular when it comes to applicant tracking, and the Winocular system has not been able to keep up to date as other systems have, and we have not received in the past very positive candidate feedback as other platforms are staying up to date, and they are also able to interface with our other systems. Winocular has not been able to do that. We also needed improved navigation for all users. We needed greater efficiencies in our hiring processes for all of our hiring managers, so that would include anyone responsible for hiring applicants, classified, exempt, or certified, includes secretaries, administrators, and our HR staff. We needed to increase our productivity through automation. In other words, all of our systems needed to interface with one another. And we also wanted our applicant tracking system to have the ability to interface with popular social media venues such as Facebook or LinkedIn or other avenues that we could use to advertise any of our vacancies. And the other thing that we needed to do, this is a big one for us, Winocular currently stores all of our personnel files, and they also manage our position control. Whatever system we were looking at, it needed to be able to house this type of information, and we would be able to convert the data that currently exists there into a different platform. Through the RFP process, we found that Frontline would be our best option and would be able to meet nearly all of those requirements. The two key benefits that we want you to notice with the Frontline, if you were to approve the Frontline adoption, is that applicants are able to complete one profile, so in other words, one application, and if they were to apply in a variety of districts, their profiles will transfer automatically and they're not required to fill out a new application. This is something that that our candidates ask of us often. When we ask them to complete an application at a job fair, they ask us, are you part of Frontline? If we are not, they often don't want to bother, sadly. So that would be a benefit for us. Secondly, it does bring best-in-class systems and insights together into one unified platform. So again, the interfacing of all the variety of systems that we currently use already, and then systems that we would bring on board. And this slide here in front of you, with the very, very small font, I do want to point out a couple of things that would be beneficial if we were able to adopt Frontline. Frontline is a preferred partner with Tyler Technologies, which does own iVisions, and as you know, we've owned them for quite some time now. And Winocular, we were hoping would be able to interface with it better, and it has not. And Frontline, again, is their preferred client. As the employee data is updated to a new assignment in Frontline Central Employee tab, the data syncs across all other platforms. We own some of their other platforms, such as the evaluation system and the absence management system. As soon as we onboarded an employee, their data would automatically load into those other systems. And then, of course, Frontline also has the ability to interface with all of the social media recruiting tools that we would hope to use. And it has the capability to, again, interface with the background check companies that we do use, and Winocular does not have that ability. Costs. If you look at this slide, this is this year, the 2016-2017 school year. Everything that we have listed here are the different costs that end at that bottom result. The total is $150,000, around $150,000. And you'll see that we have a couple of line items in there that we don't, that have a NA. For example, the ASOP startup system is not in there because that was paid out in the 2015 year when we brought on ASOP in 2015. And then the NA, Combined Computer Resources Services for New Attestation Forms in Winocular. That was a cost that we had in 2015 year, and we didn't have it this year. If we were to adopt Frontline technologies, in year one implementation, this would be this next cycle. You'll see the bottom line there would be 182, a little over 182,000, and we would have upstart fees such as the Apple Track and HR Management System startup fee of $6,000. If you look at the top, the blue lines, those are the systems that we already are using as part of our information systems and human resources. The orange portion would be the costs that we would be taking on if you approved this adoption. If you look at the annual renewal, that would be after the upstart fees go away the following cycle, and you'll see that that's a cost of $176,000, a little over that. The delta between our current system, so that would be the slide I showed you previously, this one right here, and then bringing on Frontline would be $26,000, a little over that. Our projected timeline, we started the RFP in January. In March, we had the receipt and we reviewed all of the information that came in by the committee all the way up till today. If you look at June, we're looking at your approval at the first meeting in June, and then we anticipate a 10 to 12 week implementation process. And then coming up, if you were to approve that, we would begin with our kickoff call to the company later on in the month, and we would begin training and implementation inside human resources. We would look at all of our personnel files and begin that conversion process. And we would begin training when everyone comes back in the fall, and our hope would be to be prepared with the applicant tracking side by the time we began hiring for the 2018-2019 cycle, which begins in January. We know that our HR management side, the conversion of those files, will be behind the cycle of the applicant tracking system. And I'll take questions at this time.
Ms. Tweedy.
Really quick. I think we're all falling asleep. My one question was, did we get bids from other companies? And how many, and what was the bidding process?
Ms. Bushnell ran the RFP process, so she's going to come up and answer those questions. This is Christy Bushnell, our HR manager.
Good evening. Governing Board, can you guys hear me? Governing Board, Mrs. Fisher and Dr. B, and guests in attendance tonight. We had 5 companies apply for the bid. We reviewed all 5. We had a scope of work. We had questions that were given to them. All of the vendors had to answer the same questions and submit their bids to us. The committee reviewed all of those bids. They had to produce a quote for us on all of their scopes of work. And through the committee, we were able to review all of those bids and narrow it down to Frontline.
Any other questions?
Well, I just out of curiosity, was Frontline the most expensive, least expensive, in the middle?
I believe that it was within the middle. The difference between Frontline and every other vendor that we looked at, they offer one platform for all of those systems that we use. Whereas we'd have to pick one system from one vendor, another system from another vendor. We'd have to pull from many vendors to get the same type of system that we want to house on one platform.
Was there any estimation of the savings we would realize from efficiencies? Because even if it's a midpoint, I mean, when you start looking at efficiencies and it integrates with visions and that type of stuff, just the time saving, if nothing else, allowing employees to do other, was that a consideration?
Go ahead.
Those items were listed, but we didn't put a dollar amount to any of those items. But through the efficiency audit did identify the work that we did do, all the workarounds that we have in process right now that would be taken care of with the adoption of this system.
Well, this would address those efficiencies into the system. Any other questions?
So having had some experience with Winocular as an employee, is it a fair assumption to say it would also save employees time? It would be easier for them to navigate frontline versus the amount of time that is currently spent navigating Winocular?
I can speak for myself in navigating both as an employee too in the practice of the new system, and I would say yes. It also has so many tools that we can capitalize on, workflow, forms, and all of those forms are included in free. And with Winocular, if we want to include any type of workflow or any type of new form, it's an additional cost.
I remember the workflow and the forms on Winocular. So, right, so it sounds like this would be much more user-friendly and less time-consuming for our employees to use as well.
That is true.
Okay.
Ms. Ordway.
Ms. who?
Ordway. I almost said O'Brien.
O'Brien Ordway?
It was 2 O's.
Jenna, you did mention something about the hiring application, because I do know that I have heard from different people that just don't like ours because it's tedious and hard and whatever. So how does this differ from what we presently have?
The new system, it's current in the way it looks. It's current in its use. It looks more like what most people are used to filling out, I think, these days. And there are varied opinions, I think, on when candidates do share that they would prefer just to apply where they can transfer their application. Some people might think, well, that's kind of lazy that you can't fill out another application, but on the other side, it's an advantage to us that is a benefit that they do offer. Frontline is not the only company that offers that. The other any company that is keeping up the pace with the things that they want to offer to those that are required to recruit do perform that function.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this RFP, and we look forward to seeing it on the next agenda.
And thank you for staying till almost the bitter end.
Yeah. Okay. A preview of the negotiated tentative agreements.
Okay, good evening again. All right, so Maria and I, Ms. Leva, and I have the pleasure to review with you our tentative agreement for next school year. You should have 2 documents with you. One is the PowerPoint, and the other one is the tentative agreement that outlines the language as we move through these slides. First, we'd like to recognize everyone that worked together this year on the certified side, and I'd also like to point out that Michelle Benson is here, our classified director. The format for today, we're going to go through the certified side, and then I'll pass this clicker on over to Michelle, and she will be reviewing the classified side. Members of the certified NST this year, we had Chad Segerston, principal over at Gavilan Peak, Maria, Kelly Fisher, a kindergarten teacher at Las Brisas, and Kim Crooks, principal over at Deer Valley High School. On the classified side, Michelle Benson of HR, classified director, Nicole Johnson, assistant principal actually over at Gavilan Peak, Steve Lund, DVUSD president, Dennis Bohack, DVUSD vice president, Joyce Cooley, assistant principal secretary over at Barry Goldwater, and Peggy Rimby, the secretary in human resources. We're going to begin with the certified negotiated agreement. Section 5, pupil discipline. We made a slight adjustment here. Before it used to say, I believe, in a specific department that Ed Services, and we no longer have a department called Ed Services. And knowing that from any given year or several years down the road, the department might change name, it just made sense to us to write the appropriate department. So whichever department is in charge of handling the discipline plans would be the receiving department in the outlined in the certified manual. In section 7 under personnel files, this is something that was in the certified manual for a very long time, that all teacher evaluations would be kept in the principal's office, and that has not been true for a very long time. Human resources houses all evaluations in personnel files, so we changed this to reflect that. And then the next section, parent-teacher conference days. This section was updated to reflect the changes made last year at high schools when we moved from 2 parent-teacher conference days into a different format. If you see 9 through 12 teachers will be provided 2 1/2 days of each early dismissal once each school year per district calendar. And then in section 12, job sharing, we made a couple of adjustments here. We removed only continuing teachers shall be eligible for job shared positions. This was on the request of both the certified side and the administrative side. Used to be that you had to have continuing status to qualify. We have since had several requests where teachers could be coming from different school districts, could have tenure, perhaps not have tenure, but every party agrees it would be a good option to have them share the position. So we wanted to take the continuing status away. And then we also wanted to add the appropriate section. Instead of saying elsewhere in the manual, we wanted to identify where in the manual. And part-time teachers, we wanted to make sure that everyone understood how this was supposed to work if you were a part-time employee, that they were to work with their administrator to create a plan regarding attendance at meetings and professional development opportunities. Next section, 15, under class loads, we changed the high school NCA policies to the accreditation institution. Now it's advanced ed. We wanted to make sure whatever it was, or if the company were to change their name, that it was just understood under the generic form of the accreditation institution. And then the next section for vacancies, transfers, and assignments. We removed high school teachers will be assigned in accordance with general practice and philosophies of the North Central Accredited Association. Normally this is 2 to 3 preparations, as this no longer applies. Additionally, we wanted to make sure, since highly qualified is no longer part of our vernacular, as far as the state is concerned, we just have properly certified. Anywhere in the manual where we saw highly qualified, we took it out, and we only are leaving properly certified. And then section 19, employee fringe benefits, we add supervisor approval of unpaid personal leave. The circumstances surrounding this particular change is that if a supervisor is okay with someone being out, they don't have enough personal time left, then they would have permission to still say, I need to be away for this personal time. Everyone agrees, and everyone understands that they're going to be gone. They don't have the time, so they won't get paid, but they also will not be penalized and there will be no discipline pursued for absence without leave. And then also unpaid leaves of absence must give written notifications from February 1st to December 10th. This section means a personal leave of absence. We have employees that have that benefit to take a personal leave of absence. In the past, we asked that they tell us by February 1st if they're going to be returning for the next cycle. It was actually 2 years ago that both parties, during the NST negotiation process, requested that we move this date to December 10th. And the reason they requested that was because we start staffing so early that they wanted to know around mid-year if we would know if the employee was going to be coming back. We, just as a side note, we are requesting to know. Oftentimes they do tell us. If they don't know at this point, there really is no penalty. We still will issue them a contract. They still do have some leeway time there, but it's really to get as much advance notice as possible. And then also we have added under paid leaves of absence this language, or any family member as defined in ARS 23-371. And this statute was added after Prop 206. They expanded the definition of those who would qualify for coverage in this area. And we also added any unaccounted for leave will be reinstated upon rehire within 9 months of the separation date. You're going to see this on the certified and the classified. This also comes out of Prop 206. That any leave time, if the employee separates, we keep in the bank if it has not been paid out. If they come back within 9 months, it sits in there and they continue with that leave in their bank if they, when they begin working again. And then Section 20, professional compensation. I believe you were discussing this a little bit earlier. This is in the certified manual. We do have stipends for certification, such as psychologists or national board, for every area other than vision teachers. And vision made the request this year to also be added in there. And they were added in as our recommendation at the rate of $2,000 per year, as their counterparts received a similar stipend. And then we did some really just a little bit of cleanup in this section for the recognized employee group rights. It used to say mail, and now we use email, so we added email. And then cooperative efforts. It has been true for us for a very long time that DVEA is a standing agenda item on any staff meeting at a campus. And so we wanted to make sure that that was very clear, standing item at the end of the faculty meeting, but we also wanted to make sure that they were communicating with one another. So we also added to the certified manual, the DVEA representative will communicate with administration the topic for the agenda item. And under this section 2, we added employees are provided information on how to access the electronic version of the certified manual. Once upon a time, we used to print it out and give it to every single employee, probably back in the days when we had 5-ish campuses. Now we have 38 campuses, and that would be a lot of paper, so we provide that electronically. And we deleted out the district shall provide the recognized employee groups 5 electronic copies of the packet for board meetings and agendas for parent roundtable committee meetings. And then additionally, we changed the employee group. Everywhere else in the manual, it said DVEA, so we changed this section to also reflect DVEA. And we also added that the DVEA president will receive salary advancement in alignment with the certified salary schedule. And that is already true. We just made that clearer. And before we move to classified section, we'll take questions on the certified side.
I think Ms. Orway is going to ask the same question that we all just kind of shot down the row. Ms. Orway?
What does that mean, salary schedule?
What salary schedule?
Any salary adjustment that has been made for all certified employees. So you all just approved a salary, words aren't coming to me.
Recommendation?
A raise, yes, for next year. So that same salary increase will be applied to the board
Okay,
to
so
the DVEA board president.
can I follow up? So why are we calling it a salary advancement? We don't call anyone else's a salary advancement. We call it a raise or an increase,
We can change it to
right?
will receive compensation, or will receive raised compensation.
Well, one of the problems that I have an issue with is we only control 25% of that salary, so we can't control what it happens with the other 75% of it. I mean, I guess we need to understand what what this is saying.
Would you like-
That's not clear
Okay.
as written.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, President Fisher, since DVA has existed and had a president that was full release, then the president has been advancing along with all teachers in that group. We're just putting it into language that this has been happening.
Salary, I mean, I'm just asking, can we even put that in here? Our language.
Well, it's not the AEA, it's the dues-paying members of Deer Valley members that are reimbursing the district for my ability to be outside of the classroom.
So if we give you, if the certified employees get a 1% raise, then we give you 25%, and then your association members make up the other 75% of the 1%, or how does that work?
We can't, well, it would, in order to do that, we would need to raise dues in accordance with that. It has never functioned that way. It's never happened the way you just described.
I have a question.
What do you?
So maybe if you could back up and start at the beginning for me so I can better understand the process. Explain to me, because you made a comment that the DVEA reimburses the district for the 75% of the salary that they pay, but it sounds like if what you just said is true, if we raise your salary, but they don't raise dues, they're not continuing to pay 75%. Their portion is decreasing?
No.
And Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, Maria does receive a contract every single year, and the pay advancement looks like everybody else's, and then DVEA does cover 75% of that contract.
Do we meet a point where it's no longer sustainable?
Oh, is there ever an instance where DVEA dues are unable to repay that 75% if
DVEA has always paid its bills on time to the district to reimburse.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know if ever in the history that had occurred. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. O'Brien?
Is the draft version in its full capacity available to us on Vibe?
We will make sure it is. This.
So if I wanted to read it in context, like each section, do you know what I'm trying to say?
The draft is not, no, this is not embedded into the certified manual until it is approved, but we can attach the current certified manual.
That's okay. I'll figure it out. I just wondered if it was already written that way somewhere. If I could just read it, I will. I'm good. Thank you.
I just had a quick.
Yes, Ms. Frank.
Hopefully a quick question. So in reference to personal days, and correct me if I'm wrong, employees receive 5 personal days, certified employees receive 5 personal days, and then it was, 6 or 7 sick leave? 7, okay, that's what I thought. Has there ever been any thought to just making it a total number of days, not dividing it up between personal and sick leave?
Because I know there were situations on my campus where someone would get to that 6th personal day not realizing that they had gotten there, and then they'd get a big surprise in their paycheck. So is there an advantage, any disadvantage to just giving people the days and let them use those days as they need to? So if they have 3 weddings to go to in 1 year, but they're never sick, they're not out in their paycheck. President Fisher, Ms. Frank, yes, that is a topic of conversation in our group often, and was again this year. That was discussed several times. This is where we ended up. I think in the last conversation, when you ask what would the disadvantages be, I think it's really in just the management of leave time for a supervisor. People who exhaust their leave, the difference between taking personal and actually needing to show whether or not you're sick, I think was the topic that came forward as far as being able to manage an abuser. That was the only thing I recall, unless you recall something else, Ms. Leyva, regarding a disadvantage to that. Mr. Miglarino may have additional items on that topic.
Are there any financial implication to changing it?
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, yeah, so there could be some financial implications, but there's also some language in the manual that speaks specifically to when personal days can be used or when sick days can be used, and so all of that would have to be addressed. Not saying that it's prohibitive of that, it just would, it's more than simply just changing the name from, paid time off to the sick and personal definitions that we have now.
Okay.
Ms. Tweedy?
I guess I would prefer to go that direction. I know the district I work for, we can just take time off. I mean, we're treated like adults, and I certainly appreciate that as an employee. I would prefer we go in that direction. And then I guess my other question would be, is the distinction between sick and personal days the same for all employee groups? I mean, does everybody have the same amount of sick and personal time each year within each employee group? Are they segregated for all groups?
Yeah, every group has differentiation between personal and sick. Different amount of days depending on how long of a contract you work, but everyone does receive personal and sick. Well, then to that point, I guess the other question I would have is, are there different criteria at different campuses? Like, does one principal require a doctor's note over another? Because I know there's lots of, there were times when I was sick, I might take a sick day, but I wasn't necessarily sick enough to go to the doctor. We do have language around request for a doctor's note. It states something to the effect that if it's abusive, I don't think abusive is the word, but if it gets to a point of excessiveness or suspicion, it's always Friday that you're sick, then I can request a doctor's note.
Yeah, one thing I would like to just kind of recommend is that, because, I mean, there's a lot, as I read through this, and I'm sure other members have read as well, and it's not just the certified, classified through the manuals. They are, in my opinion, massive when I read through them. Some of the language is antiquated, and maybe it hasn't hit anybody's radar at this point, or what have you. I would like for us to kind of look and see what they've recommended as changes, and if the board so deems, adopt them as they're recommended, and then plan on a study session further into the year where we actually take a real look at cleaning language, making any adjustments that are appropriate for legal reasons, and we, of course, never know what the legislature's going to do next as well. Make sure that we're staying in line with some of that. So I would just recommend that we, I mean, again, it's kind of similar to the what am I talking about? The
Sick versus. No, the children, the student handbook as well, student rights and responsibilities. We hadn't had a chance to look at it, but we don't want to postpone starting the year. It's going to take a much more extensive look, but that's going to take a study session with the board and the new superintendent and, of course, all parties concerned. So I just think any additional changes that we may like to see, perhaps we should wait for those to be after the school year starts, and there's nothing that says we can't start the school year with this and then in August or October make adjustments. Just a recommendation.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
Okay, President Fisher, Dr. V, Governing Board, I think I'm the one thing holding you from going home, so I'm gonna let's go.
Almost.
Oh, okay. We're gonna start in section 11 of the classified manual. What we did is we added language to clarify to the employees that their leave time is credited at the beginning of the year. If they leave before completing the year, that time that they were given will be prorated. And we wanted to clarify that in the language. That's the same for all employee groups because that time is credited up front, but if they don't finish the year, it does get prorated. So that's what that language is in bold for both D and E under resignation and termination. In addition, we changed the language from 2 weeks notice is what we require when a classified employee is resigning to say 10 working days. Because sometimes we've had people resign on the Friday before the winter break. They want to give that as their 2 weeks notice. And then the department does not have time or the school does not have time to then fill that position. So we changed it to reflect 10 working days in order to hopefully solve that problem. In section 16, we also added some language as was requested to take a look at it, and that was that if there's only one person applying on campus for reassignment, as you know, all vacancies are posted first on campus or in the department for reassignment, and then they go to the job posting site where it posts for in-district transfer. If there's only one applicant on campus, then they can say, we want to go ahead and post it and then interview everybody at the same time, rather than being required to interview those on the campus first. So then they would all be interviewed at the same time if there's only one person. So that's what this language is referring to here. In section 18, it is just to verify and clarify as well that employees who are taking classes for staff development or professional growth credit, they have to take those classes on their own time. And then we wanted to spell it out a little more clear by saying any cost for the course is the employee's responsibility. It did say that they had to attend on their own time to receive credit, and so we just added that any cost for the course is the employee's responsibility. In section 19, we had to add this language, and this was per the Prop 206, that any classified employee who is employed for less than 4 hours per day will be credited with sick leave benefits, which will accrue at the rate of 1 hour per 30 hours worked, with a limit of no more than 40 hours earned per fiscal year. And this leave does not qualify for payment of unused sick leave. And this is to align with the law that was passed in Prop 206. And again, we are saying in B that if an employee should resign, take an unpaid leave, or is terminated, the leave is prorated and docked based on the days worked. We just wanted to put that in this area as well. And in C, any family member is defined in ARS 23371. That's in line with what certified manual added, and again, it has to do with the new leave language. In section 19, any accounted for leave will be reinstated upon rehire within 9 months of the separation date. Again, it's what Jen already referred to. And again, to be in alignment with the certified, we changed the February 1st notification of somebody on a personal leave planning to return to be December 10th, again, just to help us in preparing for the staffing for the following year. And that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Miss Ordway.
That was a fabulous presentation. Thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome.
Way to hang in there, guys.
You
Okay,
too.
Have any public comments?
No, we do not. The future meetings are posted. Can I get a motion to adjourn this current meeting?
So moved. Make
Second.
motion.
Aye.
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 Okay. And board members, we do still have an executive session. That's exactly what we were going to. That's exactly what we were going to. That's exactly what we were going to. That's exactly what we were going to.